will cover the doorway as they start to defuse. Pengu goes for one on the young. Can he go the second?
Mid, what are you doing? What just happened? Why are you sprinting, Bio?
Hungry, he gets the angry!
Oh, he's Moringa, are you ready for this?
Oh!
Yes! Pengu, are you kidding me?
Why am I so much better than you? God damn!
Hello and welcome everybody to the first episode of SiegeGG Live. I'm Shikhar Gupta. With me hosting is Hunter Cooke. We are here at SiegeGG and we are joined by two very special North American talents. One man with a laptop, another guy somewhere in the wilderness of Canada. It is Jesse and CaliberJacob. How are you guys doing today?
I got a laptop.
Did you really mute yourself?
He did. That's how the first episode starts.
Incredible. That's how we start off SiegeGG's brand new product that they kindly requested we show up for, and you mute yourself.
Counterpoint. Would it be a major without some kind of production gaffe? We're just setting the stage here, people.
Of course not.
This is the precedent. We're just getting the party started early.
Yeah, alright. It's really good to have you guys here. You know, you guys won't be at Sweden, but we can get you on board here. Get your thoughts on what's going to happen at the Sweden Major. And we're not going to faff about too much. We're going to head right into it. So, tell us, what are your thoughts about this major, about these groupings that have come out? And you've had time to stew on them, think about them. What do you think is going to be happening?
There's a lot of teams that I kind of wish were here. In most circumstances, like a Liquid or a TSM or somebody who you would normally expect to be a top contender, but now there's a lot of teams who either haven't been to a major for a considerable amount of time, or teams that haven't really been able to do much from an international context in quite some time either. So where you'd normally expect there to be a heavy hitter or a titan that you'd probably expect, oh, you're going to playoffs, you're going to make a really deep run, you'll be first in your group. Now there's a lot more unknowns because some of these squads haven't faced the same stakes as of late. So I am curious about the way it shakes out, which means a lot of these results probably will end up being a little bit more hit or miss than usual because there isn't that normal consistency over time. So I'm curious about how it'll go.
Yeah, I find that inconsistency is like most apparent in LATAM and APAC. I mean, both like the number one seed from LATAM and the number one seed from APAC North, both like didn't go to the Mexico Major at all. Like they had a terrible stage two in Sandbox and FaZe. And the rest of like LATAM and APAC as well. Like it's really hard to pick one direct team as like, this is the best team. This is the region's best shot to win the whole thing.
Yeah.
Whereas like in NA, you got Space Station. In Europe, you got BDS. You know who's going to come out. You know who's likely to win, if anybody, from those regions. So yeah, I'm interested to see who actually comes out on top for both Brazil and APAC.
Yeah.
I'd like to echo the what Jacob was saying about there being a lot of new faces. And I think that, and I would like to also echo what Jesse said about there being like a lot of inconsistency. I think what we forget is this might be some of these teams' first time on LAN in quite some time. What I think we'll see out of some of these teams is we will see maybe a little bit of struggle, maybe a little bit of nerves towards the beginning of the groups. The back half of those group stages could get really, really spicy, but it's going to make these first couple group stage matches mean all the more. Teams like Vitality, teams like Rogue, like that, who have not been here. I mean, not because they're bad, because of the global pandemic. They just have not played on LAN. That is a very, very, very big discrepancy in how they have to prepare for this tournament as opposed to some of the other teams.
Yeah, it's almost like teams like Vitality and Rogue, I think, were the ones that were looking at it more because it wasn't a pandemic problem so much as they simply weren't a good enough team to be able to make it to most competition, especially when everything got shoved to online. Especially for Vitality, who haven't been to a premier LAN event since Paris 2018 or to an international LAN since like DreamHack Valencia 2 years ago. So for
it's been a while since we've seen Bibu,
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, and he's been through every iteration of this roster overall, too. So when we talk about them, it'll be crazy. But yeah, like for Vitality, for Rogue, who just haven't been in this position for a long time, for FaZe, they missed out on their first, I think, ever premier Siege LAN by not qualifying for Mexico. So they've been out of it for a bit. Same thing with Sandbox. And then there's poor old Chiefs over here. Little old Chiefs who haven't been able to do anything internationally yet. And they're kind of getting thrown into the fire.
Yeah,
I'm excited
it's
for
kind of
them.
funny. there's like 6 teams in this major group that didn't go to Mexico, and 4 of them are in Group A. So Group A for me is like the total wild card group where I have no idea who's going to show up, who's actually good, and who was just like good for one stage in their regional league, and now it's going to be awful when they come to an international event. That group for me is looking real spicy.
Yeah, I mean, let's start talking about Group A, since you brought it up. FaZe missed their first ever Premier LAN since the Season 4 Pro League Finals. This roster, unbroken chain until Mexico Major. Oxygen, suddenly dropped off from their very, very good Stage 1. Chiefs, these guys never looked like an international threat. Good in domestic, they won 3 titles back-to-back in 2021. But then, until they brought on Ethan, who has the international experience from Wildcard, nothing. They were not doing anything on the international stage, not even threatening in APAC South. And then you have Rogue. These guys, since SI20, lots of questions are being asked. Their SI20 performance was pretty awful as well. So what on earth are we going to see from this Group A?
So I think FaZe for a lot of people are the favorites, but I just can't get over how aggressive that they've been. Like watching them in Copa Elite 6, and maybe some of those games, didn't matter the most, but still, it's kind of ridiculous how much this team just swings on anything. I want to give them the benefit of the doubt because I always do this every LAN event. I look at a Latin American team or an APAC team, they're too aggressive, they can't win, and then they win or they do really, really, really well. Dam1 did it in Mexico. NIP obviously did it. NIP are not that aggressive compared to some LATAM teams, but to an extent did that in at SI. And so I'm worried I'm doing the same thing with FaZe, but I still can't look at this team and be seriously, that's going to consistently perform. I'm torn up when I think about FaZe Clan.
FaZe keeps the stereotype of LATAM equals aggression alive. That was a thing back when Pro League was the normal format. And it's weird because the fact that I think a big reason for them missing out on Mexico in the first place was because they were attempting to play into that exact same idea and it just didn't work out. So now that they're here, it's the thing that meant that you missed out on Mexico is also the exact reason why you're in Sweden in the first place, which is kind of an interesting dichotomy. But they also have an analyst now, which is something that they haven't had before, who I think in that interview mentioned specifically that they had way easier times prepping for a whole bunch of maps because they've just got someone else in the back end who's capable of handling a lot of the magic to ensure that they have as deep of a map pool as they possibly can. So even if it just comes down to a little bit more of an expanse and where they can play, then hopefully that means it's not as brutal when they jump back into swing everything territory on land. So hopefully they can find more success from it. I do think they'll make it out. I just don't know if it's first or second.
I echo that. It's so difficult to really get a gauge on where some of these teams are at. And I feel like every single time we talk about major predictions, to echo what you said, Jesse, there is always a LATAM or APAC team that I look at and I'm like, no, there's no way they make it out of groups, or there's no way they make a deep run, and then they catch fire, right? I don't want to say streaky because that kind of implies that they aren't skilled. It's that they are playing aggressive, and when you roll the dice and when you win big. And there's enough LATAM and APAC teams here. I mean, it's literally half of them. Someone is going to make someone look really, really stupid, and someone is going to roll those dice more often than not and win. And I think one of those teams is FaZe.
I get where you're coming from. My hot take of the tournament, I don't know if that's a segment we're doing later, but my hot take is that FaZe goes out in groups. Oh, wow. I'm falling back into the trap I always do, and I'm saying that their aggression's gonna punish them.
You're just saying that because every time they've been in groups recently for most LANs, they usually go out in groups.
That's the other thing. I mean, that's just the added bonus. FaZe is bad at every international event they've ever gone to. So that's just.
But this FaZe was MIBR, so.
True. It is it's completely different.
And this MIBR also didn't go to Mexico, so.
Well, yeah,
take a pick on what stance you want.
But SI21, they didn't get eliminated in groups. SI20. they didn't get eliminated in groups. So
That is true. Yeah, them beating TSM was something I didn't expect. I thought
Same.
TSM. I mean, considering the run that TSM made through that whole thing, I didn't think FaZe was going to be someone to topple them out early. Though I think that was the only game they won in playoffs, if I'm not mistaken, and then they lost their upper bracket and then lower bracket games right after. So that was the only best of 3 they won when they were in Paris. Aside from FaZe, though, it's like putting them up against everyone else in Group A kind of makes me think that they should be able to make it out. One, because I'm not trusting Rogue with a damn thing until they actually like prove something to me, considering the land curse is still a thing for them. And Chiefs, I don't want to call them an unknown. If anyone's a dark horse to make it out of Group A, for me, it's Chiefs, because I think FaZe Clan and Oxygen are probably the 2 favored ones to get out. But just looking at their competition, FaZe Clan should have a decent chance to escape. Unless, for me, like I said, the only other team that gets out is Chiefs. I don't have confidence in Rogue. I'm not going to give it to them until they show me something. So
I think I'm gonna have to agree with you. Like FaZe is for me number 1 in that group. Chiefs is number 2. The other two, and we haven't talked about Oxygen yet, and we'll get there, of course. But it just feels like Chiefs is going to be what Jesse's saying. It's going to be that team to just do something wild and just break out things. Because when I talked to Ethan, he kind of disagreed that his team was playing a little bit of an aggressive style. But when I talked to the other APAC teams, they were like, yeah, Sandbox and IG play one way, they play the structure, and then Damwon and Chiefs play aggressive. And so it was very interesting to see that Chiefs don't believe that way. So it is hard to pin down Chiefs' play style, in my opinion.
Aggressive can be within structure.
Yeah.
I mean, that's 100%. Like those 2 ideas are not diametrically opposed. We can have both.
yeah, I do think it's weird for Siege, though, because the idea is usually aggressive incorporates more fast-paced. You're not wasting time. It's not taking a whole bunch of time to worry about other sections of a map during a take that you don't have to worry about. You're focused on planning and planning alone. And then you get to structure, and most people just kind of assume that means you're being more methodical, you're taking your time, you're checking every possible angle, you're not allowing a team to exploit some inconsistency that you weren't aware of when you went into a round for some reason. So it's almost like most people assume that aggressive and structure cannot be the same thing. But if a team is capable of getting both of them to work at the same time, then suddenly they're going to be the best team in the world. So until someone really masters the combined style, there will probably always be like a definite split between the two, it seems.
And I think one of the best examples of that, to break out of the Group A dichotomy and tangent a bit, I won't tangent too hard. I'm sorry, I promise I will not tangent too hard, would be NIP at SI21. They 100% played a very aggressive roam style that utilized a lot of baiting and feigning for each other that kept map pressure off of their defense, and they were extremely good at it. They played out of their minds that tournament, and that kind of balanced structured aggression is a big reason why. Back to Group A, if FaZe can mimic that, not necessarily exactly the same, but if they can mimic that aggression within structure, play loose, play fast, don't play slow, play methodically, play to win, don't play to lose. I think this is one of our favorite teams. They're incredibly strong.
You over here quoting a motivational poster that you'd see on like the back of a principal's office, Hunter? Is that?
I am a motivational poster that you'd see on the back of a principal's office. I'm a walking coach quote.
I think with Chiefs, like I think they do kind of both. Like I think this is maybe why that they have a different perception of themselves compared to every other team. Because I thought like watching some of the APAC playoffs, right? I thought in some of the earlier games, like they did go for some really aggressive, like big risky swings. Digital was playing like a rat halfway on the other side of the map, right? Like they were going for these like crazy things that I just thought, okay, this team's like out of their mind, right? But when they got to like the finals, or did they get to the finals, or was it like lower bracket finals? Wherever it was,
they were upper bracket all through and through. They did not lose a single.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. So when they got to the upper bracket finals against Elevate, it did feel like they like slowed it down. They played a lot more passive. They allowed Elevate to like stall out a lot more, especially on their defenses. So like I kind of noticed like both styles coming from them. So I wonder if like they see themselves more of this like passive style, because that's what they actually do more of the time. But then like other teams look at them and they mostly see like that rat play style, that really aggressive swings, and that's sort of what sticks out. So maybe that's why the perception is a little bit different from other teams looking at Chiefs.
Yeah, that kind of thing would be the reason why I could see them potentially getting out of the group. mostly because it seems like whatever they bring to a game is something that could be a decent counter for most of the teams here.
Yeah.
Ultimately, like FaZe is going to be somebody who, based on their stage 3 performance, like because we already know how they're going to play. OXG absolutely has the capacity to do the same thing, especially with the way they kind of restructure themselves in stage 3. If they keep Kino on entry, Kino was not exactly the most flashiest of the entries ever to play Rainbow Six, given the fact that he's shifted to that role for stage 3. And then Rogue is one of those teams that, even though they did have a definite play style in the EUL for stage 3 to get them here, I think it's a case where they're one of those teams that kind of needs to prove that they can adapt to a crazily shifting meta that has been changing ever since the Invitational this year, where Latin America's supremacy kind of reigns supreme, and then everyone's like, wait a second, we kind of need to copy what they're doing. So if Europe can keep up, and Rogue is a byproduct of Europe being able to adapt to what Latin America has kind of shown is a world championship winning format, then that's where you're like, how does, like, is Chiefs also going to be somebody who can counter Rogue swinging everything? I don't know if that's how they're going to play. But
I mean, I think so. Like, to expand on my hot take, Jacob, like Rogue is bad. They're not going to get out of this group. But Chiefs,
Agreed.
right?
I
Chiefs
think
have
so.
really solid droning. I really liked Chiefs' attacks on a couple of the games I was able to watch from them. I really enjoyed a lot of their droning. And Worthy is like cracked out of his mind.
Oh yeah.
So like this team have got all the answers. I was a little shaky on some of their defenses. I think some of their setups were like kind of questionable to me. But like I really enjoyed their attacks. And I think it's enough to take over FaZe. I also think Auction are like kind of a hard lock for first place in this group. So I think Auction and SSG are like very, very close in terms of their skill levels. And I see them as like top level teams that should get to the like top 8, top 4 for sure.
So we're agreed on OXG, but we're not agreed on FaZe. Got it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And this is where the danger of bringing both NAL analysts into play.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, it feels like I'm outnumbered here.
That feels the take on Oxygen feels rational though. I think anything less than quarterfinals would be a disappointment. This is a very, very good roster. They have been very consistent internationally over the years. The only teams they lost to in SI21 were for LATAM and TSM. A TSM that placed top 4. They were 6th place. They were there when EU and APAC were completely and totally knocked out of SI. I'm very, very high on Oxygen, and I have been for a while. Like, this is an extremely talented team. When we talk about teams that can be, I don't know, I guess the word is streaky. When Oxygen gets going, they are very, very hard to stop. And they have the firepower and the skill level, and more importantly, the structure to bind that all together to where any one of those 5 people can just completely and totally take over a game. And if they take it over, it's just done. It's over. You can't win it. Or at the very least, you're not going to get out of there with more than like a 0.500 record. You're not getting out there with anything less than a 3.5. Oxygen is extremely good. That's a really, really good team. No, I don't think that's North American bias at all. I think that's just reality. The expectation is high because they're a good team.
I think Chiefs are better.
We'll get to the bad NA teams. So
I think Chiefs can stop them. Chiefs can stop them. I think FaZe is number 1 for me. I'm looking at them and I think they're gonna just bash their way through groups because the groups are best of 1. The groups are best of 1. Chiefs and FaZe both have a significant leg up in the groups because anything can happen in the best of 1 group. Freaking Damwon beat world champions NIP twice back to back on the same map.
I still love that.
In Mexico.
Yeah,
okay, if that can happen, Chiefs can 100. They don't need a deep map pool. They just need to strat on Oxygen's maps that they know that they're going to be going for. It's fairly easy to nail it down when you know what you're auto banning, you know what they're auto banning, you know how to push the bans into the way you want it. It's possible.
Speaking of like a hot take, the only way Oxygen don't make it out of this group is the heat death of the universe. Like, unless a solar flare slaps the earth, like Oxygen is making it out of this group. Like,
we'll see.
I really look. I do need to like color this conversation. I'm higher on Rogue than a lot of people are. I feel like they have that same kind of talent.
Sure.
I feel like they have not played on LAN in a very, very long time, and I think they actually fit the definition of streaky. when they are good, when they're good, they're very, very good. Top tier team in the world. Their lows and their floor is significantly lower than a lot of the other top teams here. And I think that kind of roller coaster of emotions and roller coaster of play, could they get hot and make it out of this group? Absolutely. I don't think that's outside of the realm of possibility. However, when put up against FaZe and Oxygen, it's very difficult to look at Rogue and say, yes, I have faith that they will 100% make it out. Same with
it's a case.
That's not saying they're a bad team.
Yeah.
They're not saying they're a bad team.
Exactly. Yeah,
they're very good.
None of the teams
this is
here
an
are bad.
underrated.
FaZe, OXG, and
This
Chiefs
is an underrated
all in a
group.
position above Rogue at the minute, competition-wise.
This is a very good group. A very, very, very good group.
It is.
Yeah, it's just, all the teams here are good. Every single team at this competition is good. So,
But
so it is true. I mean, we touched on this a little bit.
This is the second toughest group for me. Group A is my second toughest group.
I agree.
Outside of the obvious group of death.
Yeah,
this is a very tough group.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was the same thing in Mexico. It was the group of death, and then the group A was the one where everyone was like, well, this is going to be the most fun. Who the frick makes it out of this thing? And we're just like, okay, cool.
It's a hell in a
We're
cell.
going to ask that question the entire rest of Mexico. We're like, who makes it out of group A?
We're giving all of these teams tube socks and bars of soap and turning off the lights and asking them to just beat the crap out of each other. Whoever is...
Jesus, I love that.
You don't know who's going to make it out of that, except for Oxygen. Oxygen would definitely make it out.
Right. I am very down for a second tiebreaker possibility between Chiefs and OXG to figure out, or Chiefs and FaZe to see who comes out of this group.
Could happen.
But bro, after Mexico, I'm convinced anything could.
Yeah, anything can happen. In groups, anything can happen. Playoffs is a little bit.
In best of one groups, anything can happen.
Exactly.
For absolute certain, yeah.
Welcome to the League of Legends Worlds format, my friends.
Right, I think we have talked ourselves out of Group A. Let's move on to Group B. Sandbox coming in with a new org. They didn't really have an org for pretty much all of Stage 3. Last time they signed with a big org. They fumbled for a straight year before they actually found their pre-org form. So we'll see what happens with them. Team 1, obviously, major reigning champions. Vitality, we talked about this earlier. Their first LAN they have qualified to since, I think it was SI18. This is only the second LAN in the entire history that they have qualified to. They've gone to DreamHacks, but, that one's like you sign up for it. So this is a big question mark. Like, this team doesn't really do qualification to majors. We'll see what comes out from there. And then
fan vote, right?
Yeah, they won a fan vote for SI18, and they got called Botality for like a solid few months. That was, I think, pretty funny in retrospect. And yeah, then we have Dark Zero, or as we like to call it, Canadians Dark Zero, his third project in Siege. So what are you thinking here for Group B?
Well, in spite of me wearing the Dark Zero shirt, I don't think they're getting out of the group. I purely put this shirt on because it was comfortable and not because there's a bias going on. This is really it for a lot of people. I think it might not be super cut and dry, but for me, it very much is. There are no expectations for a team like Vitality, which is a very cool thing to say.
For an EU
when they
team.
went to LANs before. Well, honestly, kind of for any team, regardless of region.
I mean, APAC teams usually people are like, yeah, there's no expectation, which is generally
right.
The case.
But there's like for APAC teams, you're more or less pigeonholed into this idea of always being the eternal underdog, and everyone's going to kind of giving you grace, or they're rooting for you because it's like, oh, the little APAC team that could. Not the case for Sandbox in this case. But I'll get there in a sec.
Yeah.
For Vitality, there isn't any expectation. The rosters that they have had for every single LAN that they've gone to is different across the board, with the exception of Bibu, for the LANs they've gone to in 2018 and 2019. And the team that they've got now is completely different. And I'm like, if you were to lose or if you don't win a single game in groups, not a big deal. If you go to playoffs, kind of cool, but not a big deal because it's like a one-off thing. There isn't a track record for it. It could be a fluke. We can kind of pass it off. Like if Vitality were to go through and win this whole thing, we'd be like, oh, that's kind of crazy. You haven't been to a LAN in 2 years. I don't really count it, and there's not really like a lot of respect given.
Yeah.
So Vitality could do anything in this case, and I wouldn't care.
Damn.
It's kind of difficult for me to root against Team One, given the fact that they did win Mexico overall, even though they're kind of in the same boat where, yeah, they won, but everyone's kind of like, we don't put you up in juggernaut status next to a Liquid or a FaZe or an NIP kind of in the context of BR6.
They kind of have the same.
Everyone kind of forgot that, dude.
Yeah.
Everyone's like, oh, they won. And then they're like, yeah, they've been a roster for 5 months, Lamau. Like, everyone kind of forgot how young they were.
Same vibes as Vitality at this event, right? Like, the Team One were the LATAM rejects. They were not. LMAO was nothing before he joined Team One. You know, KDS was a FaZe reject. He moved, FaZe dropped him, and FaZe was doing really bad. And Vitality, when the players were signed, when Hunter broke that story, people were laughing like, what, you're replacing Fabian, Goga, that team with P4?
Because it does seem preposterous, right?
Yeah,
like
it
who?
did.
Yeah.
But they have made it here. And for me, it kind of just seems very eerily reminiscent, like deja vu from what Team One did. No one gave Team One a chance.
I would also like to point out that one of the big knocks on Vitality coming into this tournament is their lack of international experience with this roster.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
SI21, they scrimmed quite a few people. This is definitely a more experienced roster on kind of not necessarily, I'm struggling to find the words. You're not going to find their international experience on Liquipedia. They have experience playing other teams. They scrimmaged a lot of them when they came to Paris for the 6th Invitational 2021. Specifically in David's interview with Dan spoke very highly of them. He said they're going to be very, very good on LAN. They just beat BDS 2-1 in French League Finals. It doesn't mean that they're going to win the thing, but it means something. There's a capital S something to that. Planting my flag, this is my dark horse team. I think Vitality are going to surprise a lot of people. I think there's a lot of precedent for that. They have more experience than people think. They have a better foundation than people think. They have a lot of backing institutionally, coaching. They have a boot camp facility that is still one of the best in the world. Like, this is a well-funded, well-oiled, well-run machine that has more experience than people think. I'm real bullish on Vitality.
I admire the
I
stance.
go back and forth on that, honestly, because like when I looked at this group for the first time, right? I was like, all right, team one are getting first. That should be like my easy pick. And I really didn't know who I wanted to pick for second. Like Dark Zero have just been a mess all year long and then finally pulled it together the last week. Not year, all stage long. Right? Well, all year long too. Sandbox, I really don't know very much about at all. And Vitality, kind of the same. I was kind of hoping from the games I'd watched in the EUL regular season that like Vitality could be that like dark horse that would like jump in and get that second spot. They were kind of who I had slotted in there. But then literally yesterday I was on stream and we were reviewing some EUL games, and then it just looked like this team didn't shoot back. I don't know if that was just like a couple of games I was watching that were like the wrong clips, but like it seemed like Vitality were losing every single gunfight they got into. And to quote Dez, who was casting that game, or one of the games I was VOD reviewing, Vitality are the most consistently inconsistent team that they have in Europe. And I think that's like a really good way to paint them, because you know, some games they look like they absolutely can't win a gunfight, and then sometimes Bibu gets like a clutch with the defuse kit on 0-0-0 timers. You know, it's ridiculous, this team.
The
European
idea
Chiefs.
about Vitality being a dark horse is curious, but for most people, I think the dark horse is probably going to be Sandbox, which is the stance I'm going to plant in this case, because Dark Zero being a mess in Stage 3 is absolutely not a coincidence. They're probably one of the messiest attacking squads we've seen in a considerable amount of time.
G2 comes to mind, though.
Kind of, okay, sure, but I think it's DZ syndrome. You are taking so much time to set up your take, drone, understand where players are, and then try to account for every single different possibility, like Doctor Strange, like accounting for all 14 or 1,000 or how many different futures there were, and only one of them was the one in which they won a round. They spend so much time looking for all of those different things, or those holes that they can plug, or all the different angles or areas that they can watch. And it turns into rounds lost because of time, and they have to execute with 15 seconds because there is nothing else that they can do. It's not a utility burn thing where there's a job that they have to go through. They get in their own heads a lot when it comes to their attacks. So I can't really, in good conscience, pick them to make it out, because coming in with a new IGL in Canadian requires you to take more time to figure out what that process looks like. And regardless if it was going to be Dark Zero or TSM making it to the major from stage 3, they were going to be the weaker link, because TSM has attacking problems of their own with some rules changes that they made before the stage ended. So I can't pick Dark Zero. Picking Vitality kind of seems like it's not a low blow, but it's like, I don't have faith one way or the other that they'll do good or do poorly, so it's kind of a weird thing to do. And Team 1's right there, so I can't really not pick Sandbox, because those guys turned around from a 7th place finish in Stage 2 and then won all of Stage 3 with 1 loss, and they kind of looked as though they fixed some of their late game inconsistencies, because when they played at SI as Cloud9, they're early in their mid game, fantastic. Their entry was like top of the league by the time the tournament was done, and then they slumped. Now it kind of seemed as though they fixed that problem.
It was actually, I'm going to touch on Sandbox here. I know we want to talk about Dark Zero and Team 1, but I'm going to touch on Sandbox first. So the reason they dropped off, according to Nova, was because Nova got himself injured. He had lower back issues. Probably sat down and gamed too much. So it was significant enough that he couldn't sit down and play like games. He couldn't scrim. So they got the coach to sub in for a couple of games in like the Korean Open, and then Nova tried to stick it out, I think, for APAC North. It won't happen. In APAC, shit's really competitive. You drop you switch a player out like that, you're dead. So that's what happened. And they were also, I think, they didn't get the news that Cloud9 was dropping them too early. So that wasn't a factor. So it was really just seemingly like they just couldn't figure out how the heck to play in one competition with their coach, one competition with Nova, who was having problems of his own, and their comms were probably a mess from what it sounded like in my interview with Nova. So that being said, they played stage 3 with no money. They played stage 3 with no org. Last time they did that, they were at least working at McDonald's, but they didn't have that this time around.
I don't want them to go back to working at McDonald's. Stay out, boys, please.
I don't know now. They're fine. They're fine.
They're fine with Sandbox now, and they're really happy that it's a Korean organization. But they are nervous. They are still nervous that they won't perform, because that's what happened when Cloud9 signed them. Cloud9 signed them, like the announcement came out a couple of days before the Season 9 APAC Finals. And they were expected to bulldoze through the APAC Finals. They didn't. They were shat on by Airwolf 7-1-7-1, I think. And then they were terrible until APAC North rolled around. They were awful. And it only went a year after that. So that they have a big pressure. They always have this. And the way you talk to them, you can pick it up. Even though you might not understand, there's a language barrier, of course. But you can pick it up. The way their body language also speaks. They are not a supremely confident team. They feel the pressure to turn up for a new org. And they could completely fall flat on their face with Sandbox here.
They have the most pressure on their shoulders in this group outside of Team 1.
Yeah.
That is a sentence I never thought I would say. But through our reporting, that's just kind of something that we've come to understand. And that pressure can, to borrow from the coach speak again, it can make you or break you. Like, it very well could. They could make second. They could also crumble. I 100% believe that they are, at the very least, progressing in some of their late game woes. Let's also remember, APAC is very top heavy.
Yeah.
The good teams in APAC are good. The bad teams in APAC are very bad. Worse than a lot of the other regions' lower teams. They are executing against sometimes very, very poor teams. They could have fixed that. I don't think we have enough information to say definitively whether they have or not. They're getting better. they're improving. Have they improved enough to beat out, Dark Zero? Have they improved enough to beat out Vitality? Who, I mean, I know the rest of this call isn't as bullish on them. I'm pretty bullish on them. I don't think they've improved enough to beat out Team One.
I think
I like them as a team. They might be able to, but I think that's just not enough information for me to rank them anywhere near making it out of this group.
Makes sense.
So for you, are you in the camp of like a Vitality sandbox getting out of this group, Hunter? Is that kind of the idea?
No,
that'd be funny as hell.
One Vitality, 1 and 2.
Yeah,
one is Team 1, second is Vitality. I like Dark Zero. Dark Zero is a really good team. They're not a really good team now. They will be a really good team.
They will be.
Canadians had success everywhere he's gone. Pambazoo's extremely good. Hyper's one of the best players in the NAL. So is NJR. They have all the tools. They're going to be good, just not now.
Can I state my my Dark Zero defense pitch?
Yes.
If I may.
By all means. I'd love to hear it.
Dark Zero had a terrible stage, right? They really didn't have anything going from their attacks were disasters, right? That was the biggest problem for them. But in the final week, when they got to play 3 games, they kind of looked like they were clicking. They destroyed Oxygen. I thought Canadian had a really good game there. His Capital play was really strong. His Plantanile was really strong. He was really firing on all cylinders. Astralis, I don't think was that bad of a match, even though they lost it. I think their attacks against Astralis were still really cool. The Monty play was a great surprise that they used in that game, and they still had like more cool takes even after that. Like they still had strats in the tank. Their defenses in that game not as good, right? But that's one small slip up. And then Beast Coast, they absolutely like rolled over that team. That was not a close game.
That's also
like,
Beast Coast.
Really felt, whatever, right? But it really felt like Dark Zero finally had like a good week, which they hadn't had, I would say, throughout the entirety of stage 3.
Very true.
So
I
if they have finally figured it out, and if over the break between like the end of stage 3 and the start of the major, they continue working on that, I could see a Dark Zero showing up to Sweden that is far and away better than they were for the majority of stage 3, and I could see them surprising a lot of people.
Yeah, historically, Dark Zero, you give them time, right? And this is 3 teams. They only have to plan for 3 teams. They only have to plan for 6 best of ones. That's all they need, And I think, in my opinion, number 2 for me is between Vitality and Dark Zero, but I think I'll lean a little bit towards Dark Zero because you put Canadian and BC together, you have Mint in the background as well working too. I think that you give these guys time, and they have had that time. They are going to come out swinging. As Jesse said, that last week, because their games all got stacked up, guess what? They had time. They knew exactly who they're going to be playing. Sure, they didn't quite execute it perfectly against Astralis. Given. And Beast Coast is an awful team, but you have to work to kind of make Beast Coast a little bit awful as well. You can't just just wait for them to do it.
They're an NAL caliber team, and Dark Zero took care of business and they won.
You have to do that. Nothing.
The last time Dark Zero was at a major and counted out, they made it out of the group over NIP and with Damwon Kia. They won their group. And I don't think very many people expected them to win the group.
I didn't. No.
I don't. Yeah. Very, very few. And if you did, half of your wardrobe is black and purple. You might follow every single person in the DZ organization. You might have tweet notifications on for half of them. That's the only reason you picked Dark Zero to win that group over the world champions. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. You can like who you want, but
yeah, I think that's fair. And DZ can do something. Now we haven't talked much about Team 1, but it's not really that much to talk about, right? They are defending champions. They are expected.
Reigning major champions, expected to win.
Alamal
is Alamal is a top 5 player in the world. By the time it's said and done, he might be the best player to ever come out of Brazil. He does not have the longevity that Palu has yet, but he is still incredibly young in his career. He is the budding next generation superstar.
That is true.
Period. End of story. And he's surrounded by an incredibly capable supporting cast and a coach that I feel is perennially underrated at every turn. T-Chubbs is a very smart, a very hardworking person. That man at the Mexico Major did not sleep for 48 hours.
Okay, well, there's a difference between hardworking and killing yourself. But to be fair,
I can't function after that.
It was the playoffs of a major. You can sleep after. He wants it, and when you want it, you want it. I don't know. Not much to talk about with one. They're one of the best teams in the world.
Yeah, I'll still stand by one. Despite having won a major, it doesn't really seem like they've broken into the echelon of, oh, hey, you won a major. That's crazy. Like, it's weird, probably because it's still fresh, to put them next to G2 and Team Empire as the only two teams that have ever won a major in Rainbow Six's history yet. And probably at some point down the road, it'll become more normal and standardized. And it's just like, oh yeah, Team One was a team kind of like on the same caliber, you know?
Yeah.
But it's not a case where I think that they are as good of a team yet. I think they were definitely taking advantage of the circumstances that were presented to them, not just because they won the tiebreaker game in groups to ensure that they could get through to playoffs in the first place, but the way that they played their playoff games and then opted to just straight up decimate Team Liquid in that semifinal, where it was that 7-0 consulate game on map 3, and everyone just like, literally, what the hell is going on? Team One were looking at the field in front of them, and they were playing chess while a lot of other teams were kind of playing checkers at the same time, and they were upping their game to a standard that we hadn't seen from them before. But that kind of thing, I don't think, is something you can keep consistent over time. If you can, then it means that you're a wizard, and Team One totally could be a wizard team that keeps pulling this kind of like performance out of the bag time and time again. But at the outset, it doesn't seem possible. Do I think they'll make that? I think they'll make it out of the group. I don't think they're going to get as deep through playoffs, because a lot of teams will have looked at them and NIP 3 months prior for winning SI and say, what these guys are doing is something that we should have at least a little bit of a better idea on how to counter. So now 6 months after NIP has won the world championship, Team One are probably going to be the ones with the biggest target on their back. Like, as much pressure as there is on Sandbox in this group to get out, overall, I think there's more pressure on Team One to just prove, hey, what we did back in Mexico wasn't a fluke.
Jesse?
Yeah, I mean, Jacob said they got to be wizards, but like, have you seen their weapon skin? Like, they are. That's like their whole thing, right? They're the
Wizards is a Spanish organization.
It's Team One's a Spanish organization?
No, Wizards.
Oh, I'm getting confused. Okay, I understand.
You remember the team that Bryce coached for like 2 months, then got
Wizards. I know Wizards. Yeah. No, listen, Team One are like stacked, and like obviously Alamau's like nuts. I think Neskin is a very smart player. He doesn't get a lot of credit because he gets overshadowed by Alamau all the time.
I'm on the Levy hype train all day. That's my guy.
Levy's an amazing flank watch. Levy I was hyping up even before the Mexico major. That's my big brain moment of Mexico, was I was high on Levy. Not like he's gonna win the major high, but I still thought he was a great player. I think Lagonis is a really good support player as well. So like, yeah, they're good. Are they the best team in the world? Probably not, right? Like that, they got on a kind of a hot streak on Mexico, but they're probably a top 4 team in the world, if nothing else. And I fully anticipate that they'll get top 8 guaranteed. Top 4, I think, very likely, and top 2 certainly in the cards, and winning it certainly in the cards again.
Yeah. The only thing I guess we can knock Team One on is that everyone has been studying them. They could be the NIP of this event, basically. All right. Now, moving on to Group C, we got BDS. These guys, every time they turn up after SI20 at an event, they are expected to win it. They haven't yet, but they are an absolute powerhouse. They just need a few more things to get over the line in each of the games that they have been eliminated. We'll see how they do. Sonics, well, there's obviously going to be the question mark if you look at stats on Super. What exactly is he doing? Is he good enough? He's good enough for the NAL, for sure. The most consistent team in the NAL. But is he good enough to push the team over the line? I know he has great IGLing skills. I think the difference between E United in 2020 and Sonics in 21 shows that. But is that good enough for international? We don't know yet. NIP seem to have mastered the recoil. That was that's not what they meant, but it's a fun joke. They seem to have mastered the recoil, and they are back. Really, it seems like they are back.
Can I cut in real quick and say something about that quote, the recoil quote?
Yeah,
there are a lot of people, a lot of competitive-minded people specifically, that complained very, very vocally about the recoil being added to guns and how they did not like it and how it was random. But when NIP says it, it's a stupid BS excuse. I don't buy that at all. All of you are lying to save and cover your ass. That is a legitimate reason why you have to be pulled off of some guns and onto others. Recoil matters. Every change you make to the fundamental makeup of a competitive game matters. There are a lot of people that were super upset about that. You can't knock them. You may be like, okay, well, that shouldn't matter as much. What you can't say is that it's dumb. If it affects them, it affects them. And it affected you too. And you're just not admitting it. I'm sorry.
Yeah. I mean, the only knock, I guess, on that would be like other teams kind of rode the wave. But yeah, let me just finish my introduction for this one. IG, in my opinion, dead in the water right now without Hysterics. Hysterics was finally regaining form. IG was finally regaining form, finally getting that chemistry back. Gone.
Yeah.
Gone. They are playing with Gig. They're scrimming with him on 200 ping. Man's waking up at 5, 6 a.m. Right? It's not... That so prep bad. Is not going to be... That prep's not going to be good enough. No way. They flew today. They just flew an hour ago. They're going to arrive to Europe pretty dang late. They're not going to be able to practice against those European teams. The reason I think... I'm not 100% sure on that, but it seemed like the reason they flew so late because they're trying until 6 hours ago today, they were trying to get Hysterics there. So they have no prep, and the prep that they have in stage 3 is a wash. The chemistry is gone, and Gig is... At this point, he's a coach. Like, I know they can do something like Fnatic did, but it is a group stage.
They also... They don't calm in English either. They do, right?
They do. Yeah. It's you can't understand it. I can. It is English. I'm actually curious to see how Gig will get on because he's got a solid English accent with that, and then the Singlish accent.
Not only that, but there's no TSM in this group for them to upset this time.
Well, yeah,
right.
I mean, TSM.
They aren't playing a GIMP team. They are the GIMP team.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, TSM.
I think IG is
last
done.
Stage, and now it's IG. So like. You talk about Fnatic from a couple of years ago. I think IG is more likely to be a TSM in Mexico.
Agreed.
Than Fnatic at whatever tournament that was.
Though, I mean, the only saving grace, like literally the only saving grace I can see is that Hysterics wasn't too hot in stage 1 and 2, and he got put, instead of second entry, he got put onto Flex, which means that what Gig will have to do isn't as critical to winning the round. Jordan's on second entry now, Speakeasy's in the primary entry. Luna can frag out if you give him the correct operators for it. So if they can shift things around, they can maybe get a surprise win or two, but I do not see them getting higher than 4th. I don't think they can beat even Sonics here.
Yeah. Their issue is IG is the sacrificial lamb of the entire major, regrettably, because of Hysterics. And it's a case where other teams are going to be farming points off of them. The weird part about Group B from Mexico was that it was 3 teams competing, but they were just 3 teams.
Yeah.
This is going to be 3 teams competing in a 4-team group, and it will make the race for the top 3 teams in that group to make it out of the group even closer by contrast, because you're just going to be getting additional points, whether it be 1, 2, or 3 off of results from those games against IG for BDS, Sonics.
You want to whack IG for a round differential. You want to whack
that. Absolutely. Which they're going to do. The sad part about it is I wish I could say I had more faith in IG overall, based upon how they did in Mexico, but I can't, because the only wins they had were against a team that didn't have their full 5-man and weren't really taking the whole of Mexico seriously as a result, because they couldn't. They tried and it didn't work out.
It's the first stage with Joe. So granted, you know, that's the only thing they can do. And then they fix it with Joe. You know, Joe said he felt like 4+1 in stage 2. Now he feels like a full 5 team. But then they lose Hysterics, so it's going to be 4+1 again. It's not. They've just been pushed back. So I think that's it. IG's done.
Well, I mean, I will say, if there's anything for IG, and I don't know if this is considered a hot take, I think Speakeasy is the best player in APAC.
I agree.
Nuts.
I agree. People say it's Yas. I say it's Speakeasy.
Yeah, I think if
you could make a case for Envy Taylor, but
no, he's not.
I think you could also you could also make a case for Hysterics, which is why I think that this
Hysterics is not so good this year.
Sure, but I think you could make a case that him losing anyone but him or Speakeasy, and this team still has a significant chance to go through, but they didn't. They lost one of their best players. Sorry, Jesse, continue.
That was basically all. I just wanted to hype up Speakeasy because we were just like kind of crapping all over Invictus.
Yeah, I mean, I get to do that. They're from my country, you know.
Fair enough.
I get to do that, yeah. But all right, I think that's enough. They've endured it. Historics already feels bad about not being able to go when he watches this. He'll probably cry. On to the next team. Going from bottom up, I guess. Sonics. NAL analysts, come on, give me your takes on what the Sonics can do.
I'll touch on the same thing I've touched on before, which was a super quote from the documentary that they put out after Mexico, was the idea that they were playing Mexico with a learner's mentality and not something that was going to carry over to success in the environment that they were in. They didn't prep for the North American League, or they prepped for the major in the same way that they prepped for the North American League. They didn't have additional boot camps. There wasn't something that differed from the way that they prepped only for teams in their region on LAN. I think they kind of assumed that the way that they play on LAN already in an NAL context would be something that would make a decent translation when they played teams that weren't from that league, but it obviously didn't pan out. And now they're changing up that mentality where it's like, okay, we took a lot of things here from Mexico as good signs for what we can do in the future, but we just can't repeat those same mistakes. In that documentary, they were even talking about after like day 2 when they got clapped by Cyclops on Chalet the second time, they were like, hey, we've had a good major. We're the new guys. We're just here to learn things. Like they were saying that in the team huddle after the games were done. And I'm like, so that's what you were like. You didn't even go into day 3 thinking that there was a chance you could do something substantial, because at that point, it wasn't completely far gone. I don't think they were knocked out after the second day. They were close though. So now they need to turn everything on its head.
I think they were gone after day 2. I vaguely remember.
Couldn't get higher than third.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Sonics were gone after CAG smashed them.
That's fair, but I think a lot of other teams in that situation might have said, you know what, there is a difference between third and fourth in a group from at least an SI points perspective, so there still is incentive to fight, but in their case, they were just like, let's just see what we can do on day 3, and then we'll let it pan out, and then work on stage 3 and the major after that if we qualify for it. So it's adapting the philosophy of they are not going into this as the learners anymore, they need to be the masters.
I think Sonics are a good team. I don't think they're like an amazing team right now. And I really like, for me, it's kind of more of a question mark of like, how good are these other teams in the group? Like, I think Sonics are like a decent team. I don't know if NIP is going to show up and be like a better team though. And I won't like dive too much into them because I know we're going to talk about them later. But like, I don't know if like what that level of competition is going to be like for SQ. So I think SQ are really solid. They do a lot of things. Obviously, they can be like a very objective focused team. I think arguably at times to a fault, where they maybe should be focusing more on those frags. They do have their fraggers, like Rexton is ridiculous. Grixer has his moments. Kansan's really underrated. You know, they have 4 huge gunners on this team. So yeah, they can make stuff happen. They can pull wins out when they probably shouldn't. I'm going to bring up their map pool again, because we bring on it every time we talk about Sonics, but it is a problem. It is something that has to be talked about. They played 3 maps this stage: Coastline, Clubhouse, and Chalet. When they played stage 2, right? They played 3 maps all throughout the regular stage, and then they went to Mexico and they played the same 3 maps, right? Like they didn't really expand outside of that. They need to expand outside of that this major. They can't just go in with their same comfort maps. I get they're comfy on them. They feel like they're their best maps, but you've got to expand past that and bring some things that teams aren't expecting. So I don't know, man. Sonics are confusing.
I agree. I think they have a bad draw. I think they don't match up well with BDS. I feel like they don't match up well with NIP. And that's really that's something that's out of their control. I mean, it's not like Super's dad is back there pulling the strings in the NAL draw things like he pulls the strings for the Sonics and keeps Super on the squad, which I'm 100% serious about and definitely not joking about this. Yeah, 100%. No, that's a joke. But it's rough draw. It's, if there were different teams, right? I feel like Sonics they have a lot of firepower, right? I think Kansan's very good. Rexton's very good. Grixer's very good. I don't know how you put any of those over Muzi. I don't know how you put any of those over Shaiko. I feel like they're going to, and it's not because these guys are bad players or that this is a bad team. I think they're going to get outshone in the individual department, and there's not really much you can do about that.
Yeah.
Tactically, they match up super, super well. They're not better than Muzi. They're not better than Shaiko. Bride is the best support in the world. Rafal, extremely good. Next to Shepard, yes. Ilim's incredibly good. Psycho had a rough stage, brought it back. They do not match up well against these teams. And I think that's just not their fault.
Yeah.
It is what it
They
is.
got
If they make it
proven
out, it's great.
Against BDS in Mexico in their group, that was already kind of like, we knew BDS was probably going to beat Sonics twice, and that was also given the fact that Sonics, it was their first international LAN.
Yeah.
So for BDS, that's not really a contest. I think the only thing that would really keep the Sonics back in this case, or sorry, that would keep NIP back, is if for some reason Sonics gave them trouble, which again I don't necessarily see happening unless NIP did what happened for that Dem1 Kia skid on day
they
two.
could crater. They could crater.
They totally could. If any team is going to get in their heads after something tough or like not going their way, it's going to be NIP. Like, I have the image of Psycho, hands behind his head, staring dead straight at his monitor, not talking to his teammates while they're conversing, as the one thing I needed to understand that they weren't going to be Dem1 Kia for the rematch. That image is burned into my brain. And if any team can repeat that kind of thing, it's going to be an NIP team who they are either screaming obscenities or something in Portuguese whenever they're winning rounds because there's success to be found, or they're not doing anything and they're just like, they're either super hard on themselves, or they're hard on themselves all the time, and that usually has led to success. They're world champions as a result, but it's not conducive to success over time or over like long spans. And I am a little bit worried that that may turn into them not making a really deep run in Sweden. They'll make playoffs for sure, unless the Sonics surprise them. But I remember that, and I'm like, they could die before anyone really has to poke them too hard. And it's a matter of them killing themselves as opposed to someone actually stabbing them in the heart. So
Yeah. I mean, I agree that NIP probably do match up well against Sonics. I think one thing like Sonics have struggled on in the past is like they haven't been amazing at like adapting things they're not really expecting, right? I think NIP are really good at bringing out like some crazy stuff that like is kind of out there and not, you know, traditional Siege. Not even like aggressive and like the stereotypical stuff, but like they just do some like cool strategies sometimes I think most teams wouldn't think of, right? But on the other hand, what the NAL does for a team that no other region is able to replicate is it really ramps up that, not land, that's irrelevant. It ramps up their trash talk skills. Way more important, because if they have to get in NIP's head to win, that's how they're going to do it.
That
if
is
you've
true.
got Yeti screaming at you from the other side of the stage.
Oh my God, I love this
that's
matchup even more now.
That has got to be the one path to success for Sonics if they want to take out NIP, because let's be honest, BDS are a wash. They're going to get this group no matter what.
They don't match up well, but Sonics are the most mentally tough team in this group.
Yeah.
Probably, yeah. And I think credit for that goes to Super.
And Jobro too.
Oh yeah.
People very much underrate Jobro and the culture that he, Super, and the Sonics have built.
And you should stop, because Jobro's amazing at his job.
I'm very admirable of what they've built over there, and I think that the fact that they're able to plug this united core in and it still is humming. Like I think that's a very big credit to them. I still don't think they make it out, but if they are going to piece someone up, it's going to be NIP, because of exactly what you said, Jesse. They're going to get in their heads. NIP gets down, and I think Sonics are much better at holding and maintaining a lead than Diamondback Kia will be or was.
Yeah. So that is Sonics and NIP, and then I guess we all are very much unanimous. You know, BDS. There's really no way they don't make it out of these groups. Probably number one, very likely.
BDS have never made a final at an international event.
Well, legally, if I say anything about BDS, it will not come true. So I need to shut up here.
BDS is a very good team. They've never made it to a finals. They've always at least bottomed out in semifinals since 2019.
Which I also
very good team. Very good team.
The French finals against Vitality that happened just a couple weeks ago was something I also did look at as a point of concern, because that's a LAN environment which they're not in very consistently, aside from like when all of them are, you know, boot camping in the same location, but that again can't replicate a LAN experience. There's not a lot for them to stand on from competition that actually matters, where they're capable of making a translation to something like a major. And it's a case where I continue to worry, only in the sense that if they replicate what they did in Mexico, that's going to be an even bigger blow, because they had a coach buff, or now they have a coach buff. And that wasn't something they had for the entire 2.5 year span of the organization. Like, because BDS, I want to say, was started from its Rainbow Six team, and the entire time it was a manager and an analyst, and they didn't have additional support staff. And now that they actually have BIOS in their back pocket, they went undefeated for a stage, which I do think is something we should at the very least touch on, because that's not something that happens very often. Even Space Station didn't do that. So it's nice that they can, or that they've already shown that with someone else in their backfield, they're capable of winning essentially every game, even if some of those games, like that Cavanna game I remember on Coastline, went to OT, and I'm just like, Cavanna's going to win this. I'm actually going to kill myself. But they didn't. And when they go into Sweden,
Not Kawana,
if they're not,
you
knew it was definitely Cavanna.
What?
It was definitely Cavanna.
Oh, there was a heroic one where they went to OT to, I think, 8-6. Something.
On Coastline in overtime. Yeah, but the point is more, if they can't do better with BIOS, that's a problem. If they were to get like semifinals again and then not make it to grand finals, there is a clear issue on that squad, and I don't know where you find the change necessary to move on from it. So this is a really big proving ground for them. This is like the last chance I'm going to give them before I'm like, they're forever stuck in second place. They are TSM from last year.
Counterpoint, if you're constantly making quarterfinals and semifinals, wouldn't that be more of an evidence to stick it out? They've never made a finals, but now they finally have a coach slotted in there. They have had all of the success with just an analyst and a manager. They have more hands on deck now. I think that's more of an indication that they need to stick together. Even if they don't make a finals, even if they make like a semifinals or a quarterfinals with this roster, consistent, sustained success is incredibly hard to come by in this game. They have proven that over the 20-second meta. They've proven it over the online meta, and they have proven it over this new fast aggressive that BDS can hang with the best in the world. Yeah. They may not be able to win the entire thing, but they can hang. And I think that matters. And if they want to push for a title, yes, they make a change. But I think that would also be premature, because eventually what will happen is there will come a meta that comes along that is BDS centric and BDS focused. Yeah. They will catch fire at the right time, and they will win eventually. Now, if they crater out in groups, time to make a change.
Yeah.
Will that happen?
No.
I would say the math says no.
Yeah, I don't like BDS making a change, because what you've got to keep in mind is like they're very unlikely to drop their French language. So their pool of players is very small. Like, who are they going to pick up? Durza? Like, it's not going to happen unless they find someone who's really good.
Shukri Blast.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple good like French players, but like they have to be good and they have to slot in well for whoever you drop, and they have to mesh.
That is true. Yeah,
there's a lot that goes into it. So
yeah, even Liquid
at most maybe they drop one, but
didn't make it. Yeah. They have whole of LATAM to make it work, whole of Brazil, and Brazil has unlimited talents pretty much, and they are not even here.
Yeah, I guess it's worth it to mention that a change for BDS wouldn't end up happening until after SI anyway. Yeah. So they have two chances for something to occur here, because transfer window means it doesn't open again until after the invitational's done, because you're playing with your stage 3 lineup.
But also, because Heroic did get auto-relegated, there is significant amounts of French talent that I feel like is viable, and given the slot, could slot in well.
True.
I think there's a chance. Like, and I hate doing this kind of like middleman. Actually, I love doing it because it means I'm never wrong.
Be honest.
I love doing this middleman stuff. There's a chance that if they start like bottoming out, they could make a change. There's also a chance they stick with this roster. Something gets changed to the meta, as the big meta shakeups tend to happen on the year, and they say, hey, we see which way the wind is blowing, we're going to make a change. It's possible. Probable, maybe not. But it's definitely like in the cards. There's going to be a shuffle at some point.
Yeah, I guess the reason why I've been like considerably more burnt on BDS has been more because that expectation has been on their shoulders for such a sustained period of time.
You started it.
No, hey, shut up.
No,
it's not
you started it.
No.
Like,
their own success.
Before, that was a thing that I was saying. Like, admittedly, it was a case where
I'm kidding.
I'm remembering back when they had. There was nobody who had faith in them for a very small period of time.
It was the Shiko show.
Yeah, it was SI20, season 11.
Which they weren't very adaptable. They were relying upon the contributions of one superstar to turn what they had into something that could like perhaps win a title. What ends up happening when it's just the Shiko show? It turns into their Pro League season 10 result, where I think they were last place in like
11. They were 8th, and at the same time,
11, right? Yeah, where they didn't have a relegation game to play because they were still bottom of the league, right?
Exactly.
But the thing about that is, they've had the expectation of being one of the best teams in Europe for such a long period that at this point, I'm not really willing to continue giving them one more shot over and over and over again. That's
Valid,
something I've done literally since the start of the EUL, where like they won the August Major. They had a really good performance in 2020 at the Invitational, but that was obviously before season 11 was done with. And everything that they've done since then has been top 2, top 3 performance at minimum, top 2, top 1 now that we're going into the midst of 2021. If they were to have a really good semifinal performance, like, yeah, that's cool. You did it again. Awesome. But it's like if any team were to make, the fucking AFC championship over and over again and not qualify for a Super Bowl, everyone's going to be like, dude, there's very clearly something that you need to make an adjustment to here because your formula is not working. It's not the same case as, like, let's say another NFL example. It is not the same case as a Buffalo Bills losing 4 Super Bowls straight. It is because we're not talking about a grand final implication of a team that always goes to grands and can't win every time, because in Siege we don't necessarily have a comparable example. But if you continue to get I guess kind of an EG, but if you keep on getting almost to a point where you almost make the biggest match of an event rather than making the biggest match of an event itself, there is, I think, a little bit more space for you to be like, okay, change is necessary, but it won't completely change up the way in which we play overall. So that's kind of my take.
And they've got to do that in a very careful way. BDS is the best team in Europe.
They would have to tiptoe. Yeah.
They have been the best team in Europe. That is not a status that you want to lose. That is not a position that you want to give up. Tiptoeing is a really great way to describe how they need to move forward if they want to make a change. And again, all this is theoretical. They could win this thing. BDS is a very, very good squad. Shaiko is a top 3 player in the planet. Like, they should never be counted out completely of making this. All that I'm saying,
that's the thing.
BDS's history indicates that they will have a very, very strong run and that they will challenge, but they will fall short.
All right, that makes sense. Now, final group, the group of death. That Hunter and I agree this is the hardest one, the toughest one. You got SSG. You got Empire, you got Furia, you got Damwon. 3 of these teams, they were your quarterfinalists. 2 of these teams were quarterfinalists at Mexico. 1 of them was the grand finalist. SSG, they have brought in new players. They have gelled. Everything's meshing. They are looking absolutely fearsome. It doesn't really matter that they didn't really do that well previously. This group, what the heck is going on?
They're good teams. Good teams, man. I don't know.
I love
think
this
SSG
group, and I also hate this group.
Yeah,
I like SSG a lot. Obviously, I think they're my pick to win this group. They look really, really, really good right now, right? And as NAL analysts, it's our job to know how good they are, and I would say that they are very good.
Agreed.
It's not just that like they're losing to, or they're beating out like the bottom of NA, like consistently, dominantly defeating teams. And sure, like that XSET game, I'd say their last matchup was a little bit shaky. They like forgot how to roam. But like other than that, like this team has just been so good, like this entire stage. Hot and cold, you could talk about for years upon years about how ridiculous he is. The stage 3 MVP, of course. His nades are amazing. His like frags on site, but also his roam game are really, really good. But that's not it, right? Like Faults is also amazing. Like on Zofia, he's terrifying. He has those huge like game-winning plays at times. I think that like Rampy is obviously a historic player who's done very, very good at many different lands. So yeah, I think SSG, although this is a tough group, I don't think there's really anybody that challenges SSG for first. Maybe Empire.
Agreed.
Maybe Empire.
The hopium for Space Station is more justified for stage 3 than it was for stage 2, because you have to factor in stage 1 and SI were months that Space Station would like to forget overall, not having somebody who was locked into a 5th position. They're confusing themselves almost about like the direction that they want to take, because they
miserable
just
time
have
for
to,
them
like,
emotionally.
Yeah, and they have to
Miserable
suffer
time for
through not having something very consistent in place. They're not like, it's literally, we have to wait until the stage is over. Okay, now we have to wait until SI is over. Okay, now we can make changes. Literally forget that those months were a thing. Now they're here. after having 2 consistent months of being really, really good with hot and cold on this team, which I think by and large is enough proof that he isn't a flash in the pan. He wasn't when he was on Mirage. He wasn't for stage 2. And now having Skies come in, my big question was, is he going to be better than Thinking Nade? I think he slots right in with this team in a way that I wasn't anticipating, given the rust that he had from not playing for a stage this year, and saying, hey, is the analyst game going to work out? No, the player game on support is going to work out for him, and that's why he's going back to Sweden. It's not like for stage 2, I think a lot of people were criticizing us because we were like, oh yeah, Space Station's fantastic. And to our credit, they did get first in their group in Mexico and make the playoffs. Like, that's cool. But what happened under pressure against Empire was one of the most uncharacteristic things I've ever seen, and I don't expect that same mistake to rear its ugly head here. And if it does, that's more of an issue that I think is kind of endemic to the way that they put pressure on themselves overall, because they showed up for 1 half out of 4 against Empire, which is something I'm still like, how in the hell do you drop off so dramatically after what you did in groups and in the NAL? Now there's more results that you can look at to show that they are a better team than what their Mexico overall standings kind of showed about what they can do.
I'm
planning
even
on
in groups in Mexico. Real quick, sorry. I think even in groups in Mexico, SSG didn't look anywhere near as good as they did in the NAL.
Agreed.
Like SSG, if they played as they did in the NAL, they would have smashed that group, and they struggled pretty hard against both teams in that lineup. So, I think SSG in Mexico, something was going wrong. I don't anticipate it to happen twice, though.
I think they just
I
need
agree.
time.
And if that's going wrong, wait until something goes right.
Yeah.
So for SSG, planning on writing this column, but for now, just throwing that possibility out there. Change the transfer window.
Yeah.
Throwing that'll be written soon, probably after the major when I have time. When I have time to think and breathe. Change the transfer window. 6 weeks, not enough. The team fundamentally is the sum of its parts, right? Teamwork makes the dream work. It all comes together. Coach quote, coach quote, coach quote. When we look at the individual cogs in this machine, when we look at guys like Skies, who was a force at SI for Dark Zero, and who has consistently been one of the best players in North America for a very long time. When we look at Hot and Cold, who had one of the best years ever in the history of North American Rainbow Six Siege, ever. When we look at Rampy, who is a 6th Invitational MVP, an absolutely stellar player. Bosco, regarded as one of the best flex players of all time. Of all time. Another SI champion, complete and total key to this. And you add on Fultz, a North American Rookie of the Year, who has a ton of accolades. And then you have Lycan, a very, 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 probably one of the best coaches in North America in his own right. And their absolute stable of analysts and the backing behind them. I don't know how you can look at this team, and I promise I'm not letting my NA bias come into this. This is fact. This is the sum of this parts. It starts with an S. It's called a super team. This is a team built to win championships. Now, maybe the first time when they have their full roster together, maybe it doesn't end in a championship in this major, but this is a team that is built to win major finals.
Agreed.
I don't see, I know this is the group of death. I don't see a world where SSG doesn't make it out.
100%.
I am very, very high on this team, and I challenge you to stack up their starting 5 against any other starting 5 that is out there. And say, okay, definitively, every player on this side is better than every player on this side. It can't happen.
Yep.
The sum of the parts is simply too much to ignore. Sure, really, really bummer recent placements in international tournaments. SI, not great for them. We just talked about the Mexico major. With the sub. Mexico, not great for them. How do you look at this team and not think like, okay, they should at least be making playoffs, at least. They shouldn't be getting washed out 2-0 in the quarterfinals. Like, this is a semifinals team at the very least. I don't want to let my NA bias shine through too much. I have a really hard problem. I have a really hard problem looking at this team and saying like, how do you not, I don't want to say the D word, disappointment. They go out in groups. Might be a disappointment. Like, I don't
when
know.
I said it on the NAL desk about this being the potential best form that SSG has ever had, I wasn't kidding. But the thing that's going to solidify that as legitimate is them having a deep run at whatever event they're at. Like, they've already done, even though one of their stages they didn't have skies, but what they've done through 2 stages has proved that league play is not something that they're going to struggle with really at all. There might be one game where something kind of gets away from them a little bit, but they have a 6th gear unlike any other team, probably like in North America, arguably in the world, where they are capable of bouncing back if they're in a really deep hole. They know when to activate trouble mode and then what that trouble mode looks like, what the game plan is when they're running a 2-minute drill. They understand how that works. The issue is just taking that and giving them a major trophy or another SI championship or whatever it might be, the results to back up the things that we know that they can do. And the only thing that's genuinely standing in their way is themselves. I think they lost the mental battle against Empire when they played in Mexico, which led to them only being able to activate that trouble mode late. It's like you're in a race and you activate Nitros like way after everyone else has already done that, and you're trying to catch up, but by that point, everyone else has already crossed the finish line.
You've watched way too much Fast
mentally
and
crossed the
Furious.
finish line. Dude, I absolutely don't. Dude, that's just the way that I
You
play,
watched the
baby.
Fast and Furious, haven't
Yeah,
you?
you
A
say
lot.
that and then I'm like, I have no idea what he's talking about. That's not how motorsports work.
The whole idea is that Space Station only need the results to back up what we know that they can do. That's the overall
Agreed.
point.
So, a lot's been talked about Space Station, but I think on paper, at least, number 2 team has to be Empire. Grand finalists absolutely roared back in 2021 in general. Once they realize that, we can hang on land, we just have to drag ourselves through that ping barrier in EUL. We get to land, we perform. They're here on land again. Very good chance for them to make it out, or is Furia or Damwon gonna do something here?
I mean, I think Empire definitely are the. I mean, we can't say all these great things about SSG and then be like, and the team that beat SSG is kind of meh. You can't just then not hype up Empire as well.
Yeah.
But I feel like as an analyst, Empire is such an annoying team because they have this ping disadvantage in Europe, and their regular season results are pretty consistently worse than their tournament results. Not that they had a bad regular season, right? But there were a couple games that they looked really, really poor. There were some other games that I think were closer than they should have been. And so for Team Empire, as an analyst, sometimes I look at this team and I'm just wow, in this regular season UL game, they're really letting me down. This doesn't seem like that good of a team. I don't see them doing that well at the major, but they always step it up on land, man. And you can't doubt this squad when they're all in the same room with their opponents. They're playing an international tournament. They always step up, dude. I don't think Empire have had a bad international tournament ever, have they? I guess SI was kind of not great, but even that, it was fine.
Quarterfinals is they're not great. But simply,
what?
It's the only thing I'm going to say on this. And excuse my French, Team Empire do not fuck up on land.
No.
That's it. Period. It is story. That's the only analysis I have.
Agreed.
Yeah, and what happened at SI for them was really uncharacteristic. They lost to OXG in their first upper bracket game, and everyone's like, OXG really beat Empire? The fuck is this? And then they were really angry and beat Team 1 2-0, which is why we were like, oh, the rematch is happening at Mexico Grand Finals. That's kind of cool. And then they fizzled, I think. It wasn't necessarily that they were making mistakes, but it's almost like if they had momentum from the group stage, it wasn't transferable when they hit playoffs, and it was just it's weird to see them in this state. But that's the only time that they've ever really had a very disappointing result in an international context, which is great. Does Furia make it out of this group, though? That's the only thing for me.
Very hard
I look at
to
it.
say.
I look at it and say the only reason why I love Furia is admittedly because it's about to turn into the fantasy show because of what happened in stage 3. I would love to find a decent way to make a hot take make sense about Furia managing to get out of the group, but because there's Empire and SSG in the group, that's where everything I have about it falls off.
The thing is, SSG has hot and cold if you want to match up someone in fantasy, 1-to-1. Empire has joystick, or they have Dan. Both of them can turn up. Both of them turn up together. That's it. Fury has fantasy, of course, but I think the X factor, if there is going to be one for Fury, it's going to be Twister. I think you can't, we talked about how SSG's and he's his genius coach and very smart. We talked even about BDS's coach, but I think Twister and T-Chubs are two of the best coaches in the world right now. The way that Twister has been able to bring this team was in relegations a year ago. They were nearly down in Serie B, and they came back. They gave such a good account of themselves at SI, pretty good account of themselves at Mexico. Everything was close, and now they're here again, here in Sweden. They are, I think, my number one dark horse team, and not necessarily dark horse because they are not expected to do well. It's just they are in Group D, and as you said, beating SSG and Empire, or at least one of them, it is a very tough ask. And then there's we haven't even talked about Damwon, who could do something like they did at Mexico again.
I can't call. Ultimately, I've had a second to think about it. I ultimately can't call Furia a dark horse, and I also can't call Damwon a dark horse. Reasons being, they are in a group with SG and Empire, which is going to make Group D the most exciting to watch overall. I think those matches are probably going to be the ones that we can glean the most from. We'll understand how these teams operate because it's forcing you to play the best Siege you've ever played, and you haven't even hit major playoffs yet. It's going to be insane. If you put Furia or Damwon into a different group, you put Furia into like Group C, like you swap LATAM teams in Group C, Furia probably makes it out. You swap APAC teams in Group A and you put Damwon in with FaZe and OXG, there's a good chance Damwon could probably make it out of that group as well, given their Mexico play and the fact that there is APAC North consistency for them. But the fact that they're stuck in this group just sucks for both of them because I love what both of them are showing. Furia is probably one of my favorite Latin American teams and has been for quite some time, next to FaZe. But there's too much happening against them just in the context of the group that they're in. And they're both going to be fan favorites. Damwon especially for the NIP 2-0. It's just, I can't see it, dude. I can't see him getting out.
Sonic's having a bad draw. I think Furia had the worst draw of any team in the group stage.
I agree. Yeah.
That sucks, dude. SSG Empire. Sorry. Good luck next time.
The real winners are going to be us, the viewers.
Oh yeah.
Hey.
I mean, it's a joke, but it's real. Like, this group is going to produce some of the best Rainbow Six Siege. I think this is my hot take. This group is going to produce some of the best Rainbow Six Siege we've ever seen on a technical level. My hot take is that in best of ones, sure. My hot take is that the winners of this group have already won because they won it by the support staff and they won it by preparation. We talk about Twister, we talk about Lycan, we talk about Team Empire and the way that they play, and their preparation. We talk about Damwon and the way how they play, like kind of wild, aggressive, and how teams prepare for them. How they're preparing specifically for Damwon, how they're preparing specifically for Fantasy to shut them down, how they're preparing specifically to find Hot and Cold, isolate him, and get him out. It's won by preparation.
Yeah.
People always say that about American football too. Games are won in practice. This game, this group is going to be won in practice.
Yeah. I like using
that's true, but that's more true for this group than any of the other groups.
Yeah, and it's relatable for me because coming from a film background, it's very much the same idea of you make 75% of a movie in the pre-production phase.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, 100%.
You got to storyboard it. Everything needs to be done.
Dude, everything. And if you don't go into production with as much prep as you possibly could have had, literally for every additional contingency, you have a contingency upon contingency in film, which is what makes it fun, and also tedious. But it's like that, making the translation or being able to carry over everything you did prep wise into the actual match itself. I guess in Rainbow, it's a lot harder to do because there are so many things you could try to get the result that you're looking for. And in the context of this group, everyone's going to be trying everything. So if you don't bring a strat book as deep as Webster's dictionary, you are getting nowhere in this group overall. And that could mean that a team like SSG, if underprepared by contrast to other teams in this group, could either struggle or get knocked out. Anything could happen in this group specifically just because of the teams that are in it. But we have the confidence in Empire and SSG to make it through because of their track record, because of the reputation for them that already exists. So I don't think it'll happen for either one of them, but it's literally, if you do not prep harder than your opponent, you're dead.
Yeah, and sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, talking about prep, I think we are running a little bit long here. So, talking about
There you
prep,
go.
Damwon, they beat NIP twice. They make it to playoffs. They get smashed by Liquid, and they're like, okay, you know what we need to do? We need something else for prep. They're bringing another coach, and that assistant coach, as you said, this is the group of prep. Damwon know this. Damwon, they didn't know this, but they have prepared for this. They got it exactly right. They brought in a second coach because they prepped the heck out of their group in Mexico, but they didn't have time to make it. They had 1 day until playoffs. Couldn't do it.
Congratulations on your new job. Now you get to coach against Twister and Lycan.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Yeah, but yeah, but the thing is, I think Damon's a little bit the shakiest team over here. Rin was found out so hard against Liquid because Nesk and Palu know they do the same thing. So when Rin tries it again, then they're like, sit down, kid, let us show you how it is
let the pros handle this.
Yeah, so Furia is going to be able to do that. Empire is going to be able to do that. Space Station 100% has read into that. So Rin's individual plays, they're done. He knows this as well. He said the same thing. I don't know what they're going to be bringing, but they have to change what they've shown in APAC because that is not going to work. They were on the brink against Direwolves. They were they lost a map to Elevate, who are allergic to majors, right? So they are not. I think form wise, I think they're the worst team here. Form wise, not because they've made it consistently. The second land, they've done the prep, but they could very easily, whatever they have been doing, I don't think, especially in Group D, is going to be nearly enough. And I think they're a lock for fourth. As much as I love them, please don't watch this. I know you can't understand English that well, so don't get this translated.
Yeah, I'm in the exact same boat. Like, I love this team. Their run in Mexico, their wins over like NIP. I was hyping.
I was going crazy. It was like 6 a.m. I was like, holy.
Yeah, dude.
I'll root against my predictions for them because I love them so much.
For sure. In Mexico, my hotel room was right next to their hotel room. They had like a little block. So I like waved to them. Hey, they're great guys. But like some of their setups are just awful, dude. Like,
Agreed.
some of the ways that they set up these defensive holds, they overswing on like every roam game that they go for. Some like they'll bring a bunch of intel ops and then they have no idea where anybody is. Like it really just seems like this team has a lot of struggles fundamentally, and in this group against both Empire, SSG, and Furia, I don't see it. I love them, and maybe they'll make that run again, but like
maybe, yeah.
I don't see it.
I mean, speaking of swinging too much, it just came into my mind again. They nearly lost a map to a South Asian team, Monkey Hunters, I think it was. Come on, man! You went to Mexico Major, you beat NIP twice, and you nearly. The only reason they won that is because Monkey Hunters were bigger monkeys than these guys. They threw away 2 1v4s at the start, and they never recovered from that. They could have actually seriously troubled Damwon Kia, right? And
Monkey Hunters was a sub too.
Yeah, exactly. It was with VBN, the Parabellum coach. So, like, dude, what the heck, man? Like, the only reason they won that is because Yas is great at recovering 1v4s against teams who swing even harder than Damwon does. So it's not a good sign.
On 1v4 success rate, that would be a very interesting stat.
Add that to the list of things we want Spencer to give us.
Yeah, Spencer, if you're listening, do your job.
Yeah.
Yeah, Spencer.
You should be doing a job by listening to this anyway.
Right. So we have talked about all the teams in depth here. So I'm going to give you guys 2 seconds, and I want your top 2 for each group. Let's start with Group A, Jacob, Hunter, then Jesse. Group A.
Let me pull back up again real quick. Group A, I will give it to. Do I have to list them in like who I think will be first and second, or just like top 2 in any order?
Okay, top 2 will do. Okay, just give top 2. Let's give top 2.
Okay, yeah. No, top 2, regardless of order, is OXG and FaZe Clan.
Hunter.
FaZe Oxygen.
Oxygen Chiefs because we're going spicy.
I'm going for FaZe and Chiefs. Group B.
Team 1 Sandbox.
1 Vitality.
We'll go 1 Dark Zero.
I'm gonna agree with you on that. 1.0 for me too. Group C.
BDS and IP.
NIP BDS.
BDS NIP.
Yeah, we are all unanimous here. Now, Group D.
Can't wait to get yelled at by Super.
Group D.
It's Space Station Empire.
Empire Space Station.
Space Station Empire.
I'm gonna buck the trend just because I kind of want this to happen. Space Station Furia. I want this.
I thought you were about to go Damwon Furia. I was about to
No,
go,
no.
whoa.
That is Homer. That is absolute a Homer.
That would be
take.
Homer, yeah.
Yeah. Right.
funny.
Okay. Now let's just very fast. Let's talk about the top players we expect from each region at this event. We already started off earlier on. Jesse touched on it. So let's start with APAC. You said Speakeasy.
Yeah. Speakeasy. I think he's the best player in all of APAC. I think he's nuts. I think he's clutch. I think he's going to get dead last in his group.
Hell yeah, I think I'm gonna fully agree with you on that. I think Speakeasy's just stepped it up. You know, Hysterics had the solid purple patch for like 2 years with them, but Speakeasy has surpassed Hysterics right now, and he is absolutely the best. You can make a case for Yas. You can make a case for Henry Taylor. I don't think either of them stand even close. And the only reason people think Yas and Henry Taylor are better is because they're not playing in the same league anymore.
To an extent, yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
You can take the Giants roster out of APAC North, but you can't stop them from playing the same way that they did, and that's meant success in APAC South, and it's been a lot of fun to watch. So yeah, I can get on board for Speakeasy.
Can I give an audible mention real quick since we're all going to hop on that train? I think Worthy is a really good player.
Yeah,
that we don't get to talk about very much.
Sure.
Yeah,
The trend as well. Best, most important. I see those as pretty similar.
yeah.
I think the most important
Fair.
player in APAC is Ethan in this tournament. I think he will be crucial to how Chiefs. I think he will be crucial to how Chiefs perform. He may not be the best. He is, without a doubt, by far and away, the most important APAC player at this event.
Yeah, exactly.
He's the one with arguably not longevity is the wrong word, but from an experience point of view, he's a vet. Chiefs glue.
He's an absolute vet, and he's been sitting out on the sidelines for a year, and he's come back on with it. Look,
because retirement doesn't exist.
Chiefs were looking sketch. Look, they lost their captain, right? They were looking scary.
Retirement. While we're on the subject of retirement, we need to axe the word retirement from our vocabulary. Words mean things. Call it taking a break. If you're going to say retirement, and that should be an official designation, and you should have to sit out for a certain amount of time, and it should be within the year designation.
Yeah,
you should not be able to retire and come back within months. Words mean things.
Yep.
We're not calling it retirement. We're calling it we're calling it voluntary seclusion.
Yeah. Look. If I'm going to go to real motorsports here, CaliberJacob, so I know you won't understand. If Mika Hakkinen can take an indefinite sabbatical, so can you. All right, come back.
It's like
here.
Greek. Like you're speaking in another language. All I know
The
is
Europeans will get me. The Europeans will.
All I know is American blood sport. That's about it.
That's right. All right.
I can give you a really good Steve Burns joke. That's it.
A little bit finishing off on Ethan for APAC.
Okay, we got to
we did digress.
Too many jokes.
Yeah, I think absolutely. Look, Chiefs I was scared for them. They lost Voss. Voss went to analyst role with OCN, and I thought, well, that's it. They're going to lose their domestic dominance as well, and they haven't really looked that good in APAC South, and they pull out a rabbit out of the hat. Like, they bring in Ethan. No one's expecting this. And then Ethan's like, okay, well, he is just one player. He's been sitting out for a year. He comes in, he switches this team. He tells me that he has got this team to think in a completely different way. These guys have no idea how to think internationally. This man...
Chiefs are using 100% of their brains now. They've taken the pill from Limitless.
That's right. Yeah, no, I mean, look, these guys... Ethan, in his international debut, he was 1 round from beating the eventual champions of Na'Vi, right? This guy knows what he's doing. He knows exactly what went wrong. He says if there was a flank drone on a certain round, they win that. They win. They beat the eventual champions. So yeah, very good take, I think, on Ethan being one of the most important, perhaps the most player to look at from APAC. Moving on, let's go for a little bit of the low-hanging fruit, EU.
I don't know.
Not low hanging?
Is it Bride?
Is it not Shaiko?
Yeah, of course it's Shaiko.
Hey,
Yeah.
you don't even say like Bride in jest though, because it's Bride.
could
I mean,
be.
But yeah.
He could
Bride
be.
is good too.
I'll make a case for P4.
Uh-huh.
Only because I think a lot of what he's been able to do for Vitality has given them the results that they've gotten up until this point. P4 has been pretty phenomenal and is probably like the second best Frenchie that exists in EU. So I'll throw his name in the ring, but
Good shout. Hunter.
Either Bride or Shepard. Flip a coin.
Interesting. Going for the support. And I think that's a...
Actually, no. I'll plant a flag. I'll stop being middleman. If BDS is going to have the success that we all think they should be having with this current setup, it will have to come off Bride.
Right.
The X factor in every single game is how much can you clutch. Clutching can turn a very poor technical performance to a great one.
Cool.
Bride is very, very clutch, and it's going to have to be him. If Team Empire hadn't made the grand finals last time, I'd have said
BDS would
Shepard.
have. Yeah. I just want to say a little bit here, because I mean I think in my opinion the rounds and the games that BDS loses is when Shaiko shut down. The rest of his team does perform, but Shaiko oscillates pretty hard, and it's pretty clear to see when he's off. And teams can switch him off. So if he is able to keep it on, and maybe, and this again, best versus, most important, the rest of his team needs to play a big part. But if he's able to keep that performance up, whether it's because of his own team, because of himself, because of his opponents, he keeps it up, BDS makes it through, I think, well and clear for a lot
I'll give it
matches.
to Shaiko on the basis of, let's use a counterexample. When Doki is on, Navi wins. When Doki is off, Navi loses.
Correct.
When Shaiko is on, BDS wins. When Shaiko is off, BDS still operates at 80 to 75% capacity. Like,
Fair
they're
enough.
still optimal even if he's not completely there. So, because they've almost got more of a buffer if for some reason Shaiko doesn't perform, the question then becomes, if anyone else on BDS doesn't also perform, if there are two people on that team that suddenly don't show up on
Then
game
is a
day,
problem,
that's more
yeah.
of a concern.
Correct.
Yeah, 100%.
Venture, Elems, Bride, break it out whenever you want.
Yeah,
Big hitters.
I agree.
All right. Now, moving to LATAM. Who will be your pick for this one? I'm going to go a little bit surprise factor here. I think we're going to see something big from Souls. I think Souls could really, really push FaZe.
He was number 1 in 3 different stat categories, I'm pretty sure, for the end of BR6.
Dang it.
People don't watch LATAM because it is it is not an English speaking region really, and I think they suffer for their takes on that because of that. But I think if there's one match you want to watch, go watch FaZe vs Furia from BR6. I'm telling you, go watch that. Cyber, Souls, Fantasy. Holy crap! I think Souls can do this.
Fantasy was a highlight player in the midst of a Furia team that was struggling, admittedly. Like, they still placed, I think it was 5th overall, but they had like 4 losses. They were like 5-4, combining overtime with regulation wins and losses for them. So even, they're kind of still a middle of the pack team, I think, in the BR6 context. So Fantasy was doing really good, and he was a standout because he was one of the only people on that team that was really performing up to a high standard. So for me, it kind of still has to go to Alamau for best player to watch, just because he is on a team that's a little bit more rigid with how they opt to play and play together as a unit is the more important thing for me. So I'll give it to Alamau.
Yeah, I'd probably go with Alamau as well. For just like one player in LATAM that is like the best player in LATAM right now. I think Alamau is so fucking nasty. Like, his Twitch play with the F2, I think, is terrifying and maybe like one of the scariest things that you could go up against. I think that like when the rest of Team One are falling apart, he can just like bully his way into sight and have that impact and like totally turn around. So I think that's huge. honorable mention to Cyber, if I can mention somebody that nobody else talked about. I think this guy is like cracked for FaZe Clan, shutting down really aggressive, like arguably over aggressive play styles that we can see sometimes in Latin America. I think his roam clear is really, really strong to be able to deny those aggressive roamers. And he's played a really important role for FaZe in getting those entry kills and being able to help with his team. So I think Cyber also could be in the conversation.
Yeah, he was a little rocky back when the whole MIBR or a FaZe Clan takeover of MIBR happened. I was kind of like, where does he fit into the mix? But he fits in really well. So
Yeah. Hunter?
I'm gonna go ahead and take Muzi. Take that off the board. NIP are a very good team. Muzi has the ability to completely and totally take over a game. I feel like there's very few. We've talked about all of them, but people that can do what he does are very few and far in between. Alamau's another one. I think one right now are more consistent, and I think how Muzi plays will have a bigger impact on Team One's fortunes than how Alamau plays, based on how the rest of the Team One, I guess, train seems to be functioning. I know I'm kind of like blurring the lines.
Yeah,
I know I'm kind of like blurring the lines between best and most important here, but I think there's something to be said for both of them. If it was best, I would pick Alamau. If it's most important, I'm taking Muzi.
Fair enough. Well, that is the best place to watch out for.
My show. My show. I get to change the rules if I want to.
Right, yeah. Now a little bit very quickly, let's touch on the big names that didn't make it, and I think some will come to mind. One per each region, I guess you can say. Liquid's the big miss here. 2 grand finals in a row, and then they swap 2 players, and they're not here. TSM, I think, is a big one. Rule changes really they're not working out, and they're having a little bit of a rebuild process.
It broke Bolo on Twitter.
Huh? Oh yeah, he's done.
Bolo's unhinged now.
He is.
Which, as a fellow unhinged social media user, is very exciting to see.
So, and you,
fucking broke.
Kovana, what the heck? That final day, you should be beating the auto-relegated team. What the heck are you doing? How are you losing so hard to them? And then that's for you, and for APAC, I already talked about this. What are you doing? Elevate. How are you so allergic to a goddamn major? It's not how they have had 8 missed opportunities to qualify for a major. 8 matches in stage 2 and 3 where they could have gone to a major, but they choked it. How, man? How's this happening?
They're going to SI still.
Yeah, because they didn't realize it.
They can't miss
that. They didn't know. They didn't know it. But the moment they know it, they're like, "Oh, that's it." Yeah, no, majors of lava.
Hey, you never know. Let's not rule out any wacky COVID things happening. It might just be.
I won't rule it out, obviously, but
don't rule it out. I mean, Japan just opened up today.
For some reason, they don't go to SI. It's not based on their own merit or lack thereof. So.
It'll be cosmic interference at that point. The old ones have conspired to keep Elevate from
the planets will align again. Yes.
Yeah, but
Quetzalcoatl, it has to be appeased.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what is up with him, but the general messaging I've gotten from every single APAC team that has made it to internationals before is that their style does not work against structure. That's why they smash through everyone else. But the final hurdle is where they fall, because that's when they're facing these teams that go to international events, come back, they learn from those international events, and they place that international playstyle in front of Elevate, and Elevate falls down. Although I am going to say, like, you were in a 2v5, 5v2 against IG, man. Like, come on. Like, how? How do you get baited?
So much fun.
You are in a 5v2.
Thriving in the chaos.
There's like a minute left on the clock. How do you get baited out to fight someone on the Yana clone? Shouldn't ever be happening to you guys. So they got some serious things to work on. And I think that's all we can really say about Elevate. There's a lot for them to fix. They are not an international ready team, and we will, I think, in my opinion, see them heavily exposed at SI, even though they are a very fun team to watch.
Unless they pull a traditional Southeast Asia move, which is if we don't know what we're doing, our opponents won't know what we're doing. So
Shades of Rogue.
Where's my
Giants
Warbark
versus
Finka?
Arrow.
Bring back Warbark
Yeah, I mean,
just to play Finka.
goodness, like shades of the Rogue. that one round, that trade round from Giants versus Arrow at Tokonami. I think I'll never forget that round. That one round, everyone died within
Jesse,
like 20 seconds.
I'm interested in your take on TSM.
Yeah,
Because this is like a perennial power, right? Like, what's happening?
I don't know, man. TSM started off the stage with like some really bad attacks, and like it was like they were going their first game of the stage, right? They were against Auction Esports, and they just like started funneling everybody through like windows, and they're funneling everybody all over the place. I was like, okay, well that's a problem. Then they played Dark Zero after that, ignoring the Beast Coast game, right? And that time their attacks weren't really funneled as much as they were just like so slow. They were stalling out in all of these on all of these takes. And they continuously, like match after match, found a new way to just like screw up their attacks, where they weren't focusing the right targets, which is what they weren't able to do against SSG, or whether they were struggling in other aspects. It just felt like they could never get going on their offenses, and their defenses were a lot better, but there were still problems there. Geo, as a roamer, really disappointed this stage. He died alone as an opening death so often, and he always plays these really like solo positions where he's totally out on an island, whether that's in like Raptors on Clubhouse, or maybe he's in Armory on Oregon Dorms defense, where he's got no possible help. And so then he dies as this opening pick, and he always loses those opening picks. So it never started off to a good start on TSM's defenses. And yeah, they also they just kind of struggled with their opening pick. They were the best opening pick team throughout all of stage 2, 57% in North America. They fall to 37% opening pick rate in stage 3. That was just like not there at all this stage.
Yeah, that's not the whole story, but that's a big significant. Yeah. I mean, and we're never going to know like exactly right, but we have to work with what we're given. And so far, it seems like that stat is incredibly important. Like, I think downplaying that would be asinine. Yeah, that's pretty important.
Having Shala move into primary IGL midway through the stage as well, which I thought was a good change for when it worked overall. And then when it didn't work, I'm just kind of like, there really isn't much difference in the way that TSM end up playing their attacks overall. They played Clubhouse twice when Shala was primary IGL, and a lot of it seemed like it hinged upon the same attacking strategies almost executed over and over again. And when it was played out, like it was found out pretty heavily when they played Clubhouse for the second time, and they're doing things like they're having to attack onto Church, and all they're doing is prioritizing a hatch drop into Arsenal in order to go for a plant somewhere in the back of Arsenal. And you're just like, this is something that they did against the Sonics. It worked like 2 times. It needs to stop working now, or you need to stop trying it. But it felt like they fell back upon repetition from leadership not feeling as though it could have been as experienced or as seasoned. So maybe having Shala in that position like can work given time, but with the sample size that we currently have of Chala being in that spot, and with the roles on TSM being switched up, it's not something that it didn't work. And the worst part about it is not only are they missing out on the Sweden major, they're also missing out on NA finals, which for a lot of people isn't going to matter nearly as much, because it will probably be what USN finals was for a lot of people, and like a glorified show match tournament overall, because it like yay, prize money, cool, like it's a scrim. For NA finals, it may be the same thing, but that isn't even an opportunity where they get to try things out that didn't end up working in a match context that actually means a damn. And they have to wait until SI quals, and which means they literally have 2 months to figure out their stuff, which means by the time SI quals come around, if they don't have their shit together, that's a genuine problem going into SI if they even make it in the first place. So
the gist I get, and I'm curious if this take lines up with what y'all have seen. Right now, there's a couple of red flags. It's not that they should. It's not in meltdown mode. It should, on the very, very small mathematical off chance that this tournament's results do not push them into SI. If they go to SI quals in North America and lose, big red, woo! Like we got problems. Mm-hmm. Now, mathematically, that is extremely unlikely, but it is still technically possible. If that were to happen, if I'm TSM, and this is an extreme hypothetical, I really don't know where you go from there.
I mean, the obvious jump is like roster moves, right? But I have the same problem with TSM that I do BDS. It's a bigger player pool, but like, people talk about cutting Merc a lot, right? I don't want to talk about this. Merc has had like some very inconsistent games. Merc has had some really terrible games, and as a player, he's pretty inconsistent. But like, who do you pick up that's going to be better than Merc in North America? I think there's very few options. Like, assume you can't poach from the top teams. Like, maybe there's somebody on Astralis that you can poach, but even then, like, I don't know if I'm taking an Astralis player and putting them onto TSM. I don't think anybody on Mirage has that type of firepower. I don't think anybody on Beast Coast or X that have that type of firepower. So then you're looking at CL.
NVK.
No. NVK is done. I don't expect NVK after SI Quals to play another match of Siege ever. But, sorry. But I think for TSM, like, they're just kind of in a spot where, like, even if they want to make a change, you've got to get a TSM caliber player to join that team. And I don't know if that's
the standard,
You don't want to end up like Liquid.
TSM are not going to be strangers to buyouts or will shy away from the possibility of trying to snag somebody if they like him. But yeah, I agree.
Pangu.
Okay.
I'm just kidding.
He's a caster now. Shush.
If Astralis was still Disrupt, I would say that, yeah, they probably could buy that out. This is a little bit of informed opinion. This is also a little bit of just me observing reality. I think there are a couple players on Astralis that would fit that role perfectly. However, Astralis has a bigger war chest.
These days,
they can afford to throw money around. That's just a little bit of me talking to people, little bit of just like looking at the raw facts. And that's no shade to Disrupt, but I don't think it would be denying observable reality to not say that they have a significant amount more funding now that they can be more aggressive with in terms of expanding contracts for their players and potentially, if they wanted to, going out and buying new ones.
Yes,
salary discrepancy in NA is a absolute thing. And the number of teams that you can reasonably poach from is dwindling because of the new organizations that are moving in. Beast Coast just got a massive round of funding. XSET is huge. If you don't think XSET couldn't just like drop this roster and completely just red wedding it and get a new one, you're crazy.
Yeah.
They 100% could. And I think that's a big problem for TSM as well. I think that if they were going to make this move, they had to do it when things were a little bit less stable for any of the other teams. There's so much stability in NA right now, especially with salaries, that it's really tough to see where they can feasibly go. Because when we talk about like, sorry, I'm really, really tangenting now because I really like the topic of like salaries and what teams can actually feasibly do. When Mirage picked up Hot and Cold, it was not feasible for them to keep him after he had the stage he did. He was gone.
Oh yeah. His stock was through the roof before they even knew what to do with it.
My understanding is that there was a renegotiation period there, and he wanted to leave.
Yeah.
And so Mirage was like, okay, you want to leave? We're not going to try and like up this. If you want to go somewhere you can win, or you feel like you can win, we understand that. Went to Space Station, obviously. There is not going to be a player on Mirage that can fill that role that you could feasibly buy out. Mirage is no slouch in of themselves. The Northern Arena is a really big deal. I mean, dude, they have a partnership with Under Armour. Like,
maybe
you
they
can't just throw money in North America. You can't throw money at a problem to get it to go away.
Well,
anymore.
Mostly you
TSM
can.
has a cryptocurrency.
Yeah. I was just gonna say it may be possible because look, FTX, they sponsor big names, all right? Like they freaking sponsor Mercedes F1. And if you guys, again, I'm talking F1, it's a primarily European sport.
No, the name is recognizable. You're fine.
No, I mean, but the history of Mercedes.
I only know pickup truck.
No, if you can get your name, like the positioning, like a positioning on the F1 car means a lot. So FTX is there, like right front and center. They're always visible on every single shot. And that you have to have really hundreds of millions for that kind of position. You have a lot with that. So FTX is really rich. They might happen, but I was going to say also,
How much of that is going into the R6 team? How much of that is going into the R6 team as opposed to league?
Correct.
The deal was public. It's 210 million. How much of that is going into the R6 team?
Yeah.
As opposed to any of the other number of championship caliber teams that TSM has. How much of that?
Yeah.
Now you also have to consider: do we want to take someone we do not know
PB
how we do not know how well they will fit in, and then we're going to pay them a bolo level salary?
They could grab someone from Parabellum. I genuinely think like their only realistic option would be Parabellum's players.
You're gonna give Eska 7K a month?
I mean,
is that the dice we're gonna roll? Sorry for
I get paid
I don't think so.
So that's the and that is like the point. The numbers game that we're playing here. You have to be more careful, and you have to be sure that the move that you're making is the right one, which is why I think they are just there's no way they move on from Merc.
Yeah.
At least for now.
Yeah.
Unless something really, really goes wrong.
There was the rumor that work was dropped for stage 3, wasn't it? And then
he was not dropped. They were
they were thinking about it.
Sorry, insider info alert or whatever. They were exploring options.
Yeah.
He's right. It wasn't a full drop.
Yeah, exactly.
No,
I mean, so the point was they kind of thought about it, and then they realized exactly what I think you're saying is that what do you do, right? There's no one who can be an upgrade at all.
There is no Merc. Merc is inconsistent. His floor extremely low. His ceiling extremely astronomically high. His ceiling is stage MVP.
Agreed. I think his actual ceiling, if the team can switch on, is event MVP. Actually, really, if they can push it through, he can make it.
He's extremely good.
Yeah. But I think
we gotta wrap.
Let's push this on.
For me saying this, sorry, I know I tangent and I talk a lot.
No, that's all right. Let's look a little bit on the EUL. Kovana, awful final 3 games, right? And winnable, every single one of winnable game. 8-6 against BDS, lost 1 point from that. 8-6 against VP, lost 1 point from that. And then the final day, they're still in it. They still could have done it. And they get smashed off the board 7-2 by Heroic. They were having pretty decent results. Big lol. And also earlier on in the season, they didn't know this at that point. Not much pressure. But they lost to G2. Like, you're losing to G2 8-7. That 1 point, that's 1 point that you lost further. So, lots of things that added up at the end of the season. This Kovana team, I think it's pretty decent. But they just can't push themselves over the line domestically.
Take care of your business, and this doesn't happen. Win your games.
Yeah.
Period.
Exactly.
Beat Heroic. Sorry, I'll let y'all go. I know I've been talking a lot. Win your games, and this doesn't happen. That's it. Period.
They ended up dropping down below VP ultimately, standings wise in EUL, which I thought was kind of ironic when they were sitting in top 3, top 4 contention for the majority of stage 3, and I thought they were going to qualify. I think everyone had an expectation that Kovana was going to be going to Sweden and not Vitality. And then that happens. I was a little bit stunned, but at the same time, I'm also kind of hoping that this is enough of a reality check for them to understand. As much as it's nice to have a really hot rookie and Benji come in, and you're just like, yeah, this dude is off his rocker. He's never played in comp before, but he just turned 18. He frags out of his mind. He will be the European Bolo. Didn't turn out that way, but I'm looking at it and thinking this is not the end of the world for them. It's more like you have a lot of momentum behind you, but then you got found out as the rest of the stage progressed, which is a thing that we've seen countless team after team fall prey to, like while Rainbow Six has been a thing. So it's not like they're never going to find form internationally and eventually qualify for something legitimate and substantial, but it's not now. And that, honestly, for them, that's okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think Grizzly is an amazing player who has like some of the best flanks that like in all of Europe. I think Sloth also has like really good flanks in general for Kovana and has great positioning. Benja, I agree, is like amazing on the roam clear with like a drone in front of him. I think this team's really good. I think Kovana are a top 4 or one of the best or our top 4 team in Europe, right? I think undoubtedly in my mind, they deserve to be at this major and they deserve to be at the last major too. But they don't win their games. So maybe deserve.
So they don't deserve to be there.
No,
I
I
would
mean
say
they're deserved,
not
but
quite,
I think they're.
but
Yeah.
I think they're a top 4 team. If you want
Contenders.
the 4 best teams in Europe, then I think like they should be there.
Yeah, I just want
I'll say
to
deserved. They were top 4 in stage 1 when SI got postponed.
Yeah.
They deserve
Oh
a
yeah,
major.
for that one.
Yeah.
They deserve that one. But I also just want to quickly point out, like, they've only had 2 convincing wins in the entire stage. 7-4 Vitality, 7-3 over Secret. Their other 2 wins that kind of got them noticed were 8-7s against Na'Vi and Empire. And Na'Vi didn't even make it at the end of the day. Look, maybe they're not as cracked up as we thought them to be. Maybe that's a reality check for us as well. Like, they're maybe a good team, but they are so close every single time. We talk about how a couple of rounds going their way could have got them to the major. A couple of rounds going the other way, they would be fighting for relegation.
Good teams win their games.
Yeah.
Xset pushed 5 rounds on Space Station. Good teams win.
Yeah,
Is what
which
it is.
I guess leaves us with the final team to talk about who didn't make it. A big one, Liquid. Switch out
Man.
Sexy Cake, switch out Moringa, bring in Ask and Resets. Very good players, mind you, and I would say definitely not a downgrade, but at least in the short term, at best, a side grade.
Wow. Okay. No, I think these players are huge downgrades. I think these players are
Oh, really?
played very poorly. I think both Ask and Resets have been massive disappointments for Team Liquid all stage long. You know, you look at that match right against NIP to qualify them for
True.
Sweden, and they were just like not there. I mean, like let me grab my notes real quick one more time. Here we go. Like Resets is like an entry player that doesn't find any kills on the entry, and Ask is like a support player that doesn't plant the defuse kit. Like, it really baffles me, some of the decision making, some of the decisions that goes on in these players' like minds. And like, I'm not here to trash on them, but I kind of am, because like they really let me down. Like I was so hyped for Liquid, and they
I
brought in 2
think
new
they can
players, and I was willing to
make it
give them a
work.
shot. I don't,
But-
dude. I like, we'll see at SI or at SI, because they're going
Yeah,
to SI.
Silence needs to rein them in. He needs to shove it down the throats that you guys gotta do your jobs.
So, per our previous conversation about BDS,
Yeah.
this is my fear for BDS if they do decide to make changes
Yeah.
after a very, very successful run. This exact scenario, because I agree with Jesse. It was a downgrade. I think they made an error. I think they were hasty.
Benefit of the doubt applies, though I'll be the first person
That's
to say
fair.
benefit of the doubt only extends so far because of its one stage performance, and they were still 5-1, 2-1 in stage by stage results, not the stupid combined standings that
Yeah.
BR6 and all LATAM uses. And then when they went to Copa, the only thing that was genuinely a problem was them facing NIP in the quarterfinals for Copa, because they were second out of their group. They were looking like they were okay. What they managed to accomplish with 2 new players coming in after such a long time, having to, like, they had to untangle themselves from the system that they had developed with having those 5 players for Liquid on that team for such a long stretch. So in the midst of all that untangling, incorporating 2 new players into a system that cannot exist anymore because the players who helped develop that
Yeah.
system do not exist with the team anymore, there's a lot of internal turmoil for Team Liquid that isn't going to make itself manifest, hopefully, as time goes on. The problem is going to come from what they do at SI. Obviously, they're not playing in quals, or they will have the BR6 finals to worry about because they were within, is it top 4 or top 6 when they get to that? I'll have to go back and check. But they have all of this potential right now that has yet to be squandered. As much as I agree,
Agreed.
they're probably downgrades. What they still have in front of them is enough time and enough space to make the time between now and SI worthwhile enough to then do something substantial at SI.
Yeah, when I think, again, I'm going to echo what I think Jacob said a lot more eloquently than I was putting it. When you have the other coaches in LATAM saying that Ask and Resets are really good players, I think they're really good players. I think it is exactly what Jacob said. This is a massive, massive change. They are not ready for this. And yes, Hunter might be right. This is a little bit hasty. But I think, yeah, you have to think about it. Like, look, you're making 2 grand finals in a row. You just can't push yourself over the line. Maybe you really need to change. And Sexy Cake was underperforming for a little while. So it does make sense to swap him out. So that's why I'm saying for me, it looks like a side grade. I don't think they're going to push forward with this team beyond what Sexy Kate and Moringa were giving them. But I think the downgrade only looks like it because in the short term, they need a lot more time to fix this. By SI calls, I think they would have fixed it. If as you said, if Liquid had faced Malvinas in the quarterfinals to make it to Sweden, I think they'll be here.
There's time. There's always time. However, right now, based on the sample size that we have, it's looking like an error.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I don't think we can disagree with that. So now let's get a little bit of fun before we start wrapping this up. This final part of the show. If you guys are wondering what's going on, let's figure out some funky brackets over here for the Mexico Major. Give me the weirdest runs that you can think of, the weirdest quarterfinals, maybe, and whoever you want to win.
I'll go first. I think it would be genuinely hilarious if two things happened. The first would be Invictus making playoffs, which I know isn't a crazy deep thing, but given the circumstances of that team, it would be really, really funny if somehow they managed to make it through. Whether even what team it happens over, it doesn't matter, because I do think BDS is going to qualify anyway. But Invictus qualifying means NIP doesn't again.
Oh,
and I love the idea of NIP having this crazy fall off after winning a world championship. From a storyline point of view, that does kind of make them the single most volatile team to themselves that I think in Siege will have ever existed at a high level. So if IG somehow crack into quarters, it means NIP don't go. That's just, give me more of that. That's free serotonin right there. The other thing for me would probably be legitimately, like, to go off Hunter's point from earlier, Vitality being champions of Sweden is the ultimate chaos move. Regardless of how they get there, just that eventuality and what that means for like everyone in EU who's been fighting for a long time, your BDS and your Empire, and everyone just going, ooh, they weren't even supposed to be here.
Yeah,
dog.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah. So,
dang it, why didn't I think of that? Dang it.
Either one of those would be like, I love it when everything just goes completely to shit, and both of those would be so much fun to watch.
I feel like the only thing I want, right? The only thing I'm imagining in my chaos bracket is it's the first day of the major, right? Rogue are sitting down at their computers, across from the next room are the Chiefs. They're sitting down, they're logging in, they're about to tell the admin that they're ready to go. At that point, an Australian government official bursts in the room and he says, there's been an emergency callback. All Australians need to get back to the country right now. And Chiefs get airlifted at that moment, sent back to Australia. They get dead last in their group by disqualification once again. And Australian fans have to cry about not having a team once more.
They bring in 5 little kangaroos, they stuff them all in their pouches, and they bounce back to Australia.
As you do, from Sweden.
Yep, all the way, even through the water.
Oh,
they'll figure it out.
What did OCE ever do to you, dog? Did you lose a bet with a Raven or something?
The bet with the talking kangaroo. I need to stop this kangaroo stuff. That's probably bad.
Hunter, yours.
I love it though.
Mine. Okay. So this is my absolute funniest possible thing that could happen. 2 teams make it all the way to the grand finals. Sonics and Team 1. Sonics win in a 3-0 stomp. Yeti puts up 2 middle fingers this time, sending the entire country of Brazil into a catatonic state where they have become zombified, therefore nullifying any single advantage they have. The only Brazilians that are not in said catatonic state are the ones at the Sweden Major, and those are the only. That's it for BR6. It's done. It's over. It's just these 4 teams forever.
They're the only Portuguese people left in Brazil. Can
you imagine, like, some server in the Twitter server farm is just going to catch fire if Yeti wins a title. It's going to catch fire. Over Team 1, the beloved, the Golden Boys.
They literally called the Golden Kids.
Yes, that is my absolute. I don't necessarily know if it's chaos, but that is the funniest possible outcome. If that happens at any point, whether that's like a meetup in the quarterfinals, I'm I'm going to be running around my room. There will be hooting and hollering. We're going to do both. In Texas, that's a big fucking deal to be hooting and hollering.
About to take a victory lap with a beer, dog.
That's right. So for me, I think what would be the funniest is the past 2 hours that we've talked about are absolute complete bullshit. Phase fails, Oxygen fails, Team 1 fails, Dark Zero fails, BDS fail, NIP fail, and Space Station and Empire fail. None of these guys make it out of the group. It is the craziest LAN event in R6 history, perhaps in esports history. 0 favorites make it through. Everyone is out. We have no idea what the hell's going on in playoffs, and we crown a new champion. that's my thing.
Sandbox?
I'm cool for total inverse.
I'm going for the Sandbox versus Chief final.
Okay.
APAC wins.
I would take
APAC
Chiefs
supremacy.
in that game because that's like the only team that's like they're making an international LAN debut. Whether it's for any esport in Chiefs org history, I'm not sure, but at the very least for Rainbow Six, in like your debut, congratulations, you just won 200 grand, Lamau.
Chiefs winning it is the ultimate feel good story. That's like
sure.
you're making a Hallmark movie out of that.
ANZ's redemption arc would be like complete already after
Tom Hanks is in it somehow.
Tom Hanks is Ethan.
Tom Hanks. You get Tom Hanks to play Ethan. We just put a wig on him, dude.
That's right,
dude. Yeah,
we use some of that Marvel's de-aging technology, and we're good to go. But I mean, I think that would be something crazy. Like Chiefs making it would really feel good. This is the first event that Oceania has been able to go to since SI20. They missed 2 out of their control, right? And a little bit thing as well for APAC as well is going to be a big thing. This is the first event they're going to have 4 teams ever in R6 history. One of them just gets gamed right out of the gate, so it's not even 4 at full strength. So an APAC team winning it would do a lot to the hearts of APAC fans for that. So, but yeah, I think that's about it. We have really talked ourselves everything that we want to talk about prior to this.
We're only
Sweden
45
major.
minutes over. That's not bad.
We went hard on this. We were looking at a 1.5 hour show to start it off, but this is a special episode where we make the rules. So we are here at 2 minutes and 14:30 and counting, and we are going to give our closing thoughts. It's going to be a great event, unquestionably. We are going to see something absolutely intense. The meta has kind of solidified itself for a lot. We are getting back into the swing of playing international events. You could see everyone sloppy as shit at SI21. It was a horribly sloppy R6 event, one of the sloppiest we've seen in recent years. It's not going to be that anymore. Everything's going to be on point. Yeah, that's it. It'll start on November 8th at 10 a.m. Central European time, which is 1 hour ahead of UTC/GMT. So fix your clocks if you want to catch the openers there. I'm going to be on Rainbow Six.
2 to 3 a.m. for Jesse and myself. So that's going to be fun.
It's good timing for us here in APAC, if you guys are wondering. It will start at around 4 p.m. to like 7 p.m.-ish for us. So nice way
That's
to
kind
end
of a
off.
nice start for you guys, though. You guys get evening siege, which is kind of a commodity. Like, yeah,
it's where the regular season is anyway, so we're used to it. So it will stretch out a little bit into the night, but that's all right. It'll be on Rainbow Six and Rainbow Six Bravo, and it's going to be really, really fun. It's a best of 1 groups, double round robin. Every team is going to play each other once, and then twice again in the groups, and then it'll be a single elimination best of 3 in the quarters and semis, and then a straight best of 5 in the grand final. So not like SI where you have the upper bracket grand final advantage. That's how it's going to be. We here at SiegeGG Live, we're going to have another show in the middle of the Sweden major that's going to be between the group stage days and the playoff days. That's one day you have. And Jesse and Jacob, these guys are going to be giving their thoughts on the Sweden major as well. So go tune in, get their perspectives as well, because they're here. We'll see how they diverge. We'll see how we diverge. But that
show's good. Watch it.
Yeah, exactly.
Idiots.
They got nice graphics. They got nicer graphics than us, I think, a little bit.
Yeah.
Just slam.
Production quality through the roof.
To be fair, they're still being built, and I even haven't seen the final version of them yet. But we'll get there. We'll get there.
we also.
Hey, if you build it, they will come.
Exactly.
Indeed.
We also.
I'm not tired of American sports references yet.
All right.
You are a
yeah.
coach book hunter.
That has been. That has been the first episode of CiegeGG Live. We know we have a lot to work on, but we hope that you have enjoyed this debut, and we hope that you'll tune in for many more CiegeGG Lives to come. Tune into Jesse and Jacob's show, and most of all, have a good day and enjoy the Sweden Major.
We hope your favorite team wins, and if your favorite team doesn't win, it's not our fault.
No casticas.
BDS does the thing.
Ah.
There it is.
No, Jesse's
Goodbye.
keeping. Goodbye. See you guys.